The chamber is open and full of whispers.
What if Minerva McGonagall had refused to leave Harry Potter on that cold doorstep? What if, after watching the Dursleys all day on November 1st, 1981, seeing Vernon Dursley's aggressive normality, Petunia's pinched face hardening at every mention of her sister, young Dudley's spoiled tantrums, Professor McGonagall had said no, not a polite disagreement, not a gentle suggestion, but a firm, unequivocal refusal to abandon Lily Potter's son to people who would despise him for the simple crime of existing. This seems impossible at first. McGonagall, for all her Gryffindor courage, respects authority. She defers to Dumbledore's wisdom. In canon, she voices her concerns about the Dursleys and then steps aside, trusting that the headmaster knows best. But what if she hadn't? Today we're exploring the timeline where Minerva McGonagall, deputy headmistress of Hogwarts, Transfiguration master, war veteran, and one of the most formidable witches in Britain, made a different choice, where she looked at the baby in Hagrid's arms, saw James Potter's unruly black hair and Lily Evans' potential for brilliance, and decided that this child would not grow up unloved. This changes everything, not just Harry's childhood, but his entire approach to magic, relationships, identity, and the prophecy that marks him as the only one capable of defeating Voldemort. Because growing up with Minerva McGonagall doesn't just mean a different address, it means a fundamentally different person. Canon Harry is defined by deprivation and survival. He's the boy who lived in a cupboard, who was starved and beaten and told he was worthless. When he discovers magic, it's salvation, a complete transformation from unwanted freak to celebrated hero. His identity is built on contrast, the terrible before and the magical after. But McGonagall's Harry would never know that deprivation. He'd grow up in a cottage in Hogsmeade, raised by one of the most respected professors at Hogwarts, trained in magic from the moment his abilities manifested. He'd know from infancy that he was wanted, valued, loved. In McGonagall's particular stern, exacting, fiercely protective way. This isn't a softer childhood. McGonagall would never coddle. She'd demand excellence, discipline, emotional control. She'd teach him that magic requires precision, that fame is a burden, not a gift, that his parents' sacrifice demands he become worthy of it. Harry would grow up under pressure, but it would be the pressure of high expectations, not abuse. We'll explore how this shapes every aspect of Harry's character. His academic approach, McGonagall would never tolerate the lazy attitude Canon Harry displays toward homework. His emotional regulation, no Dursley-induced rage issues, but also less spontaneous warmth. His relationships, chosen through careful evaluation rather than desperate need for belonging. His magic trained systematically rather than learned through crisis. We'll watch how McGonagall navigates the impossible challenge of being both professor and parent, how she maintains authority in the classroom while providing emotional support at home, how she balances her duties to Hogwarts with her responsibilities to Harry, how she handles the gossip, the judgment, the constant scrutiny of raising the boy who lived, and we'll examine the magical complications. Because Dumbledore didn't place Harry with the Dursleys on a whim, he did it for the blood protection. Lily's sacrifice created ancient magic that kept Harry safe as long as he could call his aunt's house home. Without that protection, Harry is vulnerable to any Death Eater seeking revenge. But Dumbledore is brilliant, and McGonagall is his most trusted colleague. Together they could craft alternative protections. A Fidelius charm on McGonagall's cottage, making it unplottable and invisible to those who haven't been told the secret. Additional Blood Ward magic, adapted to work through McGonagall's accepted guardianship of Lily's son. Layered enchantments that would keep Harry safe without requiring him to suffer. The question isn't whether Harry can be protected, it's what kind of person he becomes when protection and high expectations replace neglect and abuse. We'll follow Harry from infancy through his Hogwarts years, watching how McGonagall's influence ripples through every canonical event. The Philosopher's Stone crisis handled through proper channels rather than 3 first-years sneaking around. The Chamber of Secrets investigated with adult supervision. The Triwizard Tournament faced with genuine preparation instead of desperate improvisation. But we'll also explore the costs. McGonagall's emotional reserve means Harry grows up knowing he's valued, but rarely hearing it said directly. Her high standards mean he's never satisfied with good enough. Her position at Hogwarts means Harry's childhood is spent in the shadow of the school, never fully separate from his destined role, and her fierce protectiveness means she struggles to let him face the dangers the prophecy demands. This is the story of what happens when the most unlikely guardian, stern, exacting, emotionally controlled Professor McGonagall, becomes the most devoted mother figure the boy who lived could have asked for. When discipline replaces abuse, when excellence is demanded from love rather than contempt, when Harry Potter grows up knowing exactly who he is and what's expected of him. It's a story about family not defined by blood, but by choice. About a witch who never expected to raise a child learning to love one with all the fierce intensity she brings to everything else. About a boy who could have been broken by neglect, instead being shaped by the kind of strict, demanding, absolutely unwavering devotion that only Minerva McGonagall could provide. So let's explore what happens when McGonagall refuses to leave Harry on that doorstep, when she takes him home instead. When the boy who lived becomes the boy who was raised by the most formidable witch in Britain, and becomes formidable himself as a result. November 1st, 1981. The choice. Minerva McGonagall had been sitting on the brick wall outside number 4, Privet Drive, for 11 hours, and she'd seen enough. She'd watched Vernon Dursley leave for work that morning. A large, beefy man who'd nearly kicked a cat, Minerva herself in animagus form, on his way to the car. She'd watched Petunia Dursley peer through the curtains repeatedly, her thin face pinched with suspicious concern about the unusual number of owls flying overhead. She'd watched young Dudley Dursley throw a spectacular tantrum over a broken toy, screaming until his face turned purple while his mother soothed and indulged. And she'd formed a conviction that solidified with each passing hour. These people were utterly wrong for Lily Potter's son. When Dumbledore finally arrived at 11:30 that night, appearing at the corner in his sweeping purple cloak, Minerva transformed from tabby cat to human with barely suppressed fury. "How could you, Albus?" she demanded before he could speak. "I've been watching them all day. All day. Vernon Dursley is a bully and a boor. Petunia Dursley spent 10 minutes staring at a perfectly normal owl with such hatred I thought she might hex it herself if she had magic. And that child, Dudley, is the most spoiled, unpleasant boy I've ever observed." "Good evening, Minerva," Dumbledore said mildly. "I see you've been conducting reconnaissance." "I've been watching you make a terrible mistake," Minerva corrected sharply. "Albus, Lily Potter died protecting her son." "Died? And you want to leave him here? With her sister, who she told me hadn't spoken to her in years? Who was jealous of Lily's magic from the moment the Hogwarts letter arrived?" "The blood protection," Dumbledore began. "I know about the blood protection," Minerva interrupted, something she rarely did. "You explained it to me. Lily's sacrifice creates a charm that will keep Harry safe as long as he can call his blood relative's house home. Ancient magic, powerful magic, I understand all of that. But Albus, I've seen how they live. That boy Harry won't be home there. He'll be an unwanted burden, an obligation, a reminder of everything they despise about magic. Nevertheless, no." Minerva drew herself up to her full height, which was considerable. "Albus Dumbledore, I have followed your leadership without question for decades. During the war, I trusted your strategies even when they seemed mad. I've never once refused a direct request from you. But this I cannot accept." Dumbledore's eyes lost their customary twinkle. "Minerva, I understand your concerns, do you?" Minerva's voice was sharp enough to cut. "Have you watched Petunia Dursley flinch every time an owl flew past? Have you seen Vernon Dursley's contempt for anything abnormal? Lily was my student, Albus. I taught her for 7 years. I watched her grow from a brilliant, curious child into a remarkable witch. I mourned when she died. And I will not let her son be raised by people who will teach him to hate what he is. The protection is not negotiable," Dumbledore said quietly. "Without Petunia Dursley taking him in, the blood charm fails. Voldemort's followers will hunt him. They'll want revenge, Minerva. They'll want to finish what their master started. Then we create different protections," Minerva said immediately. "You're the greatest wizard alive, and I'm not without skill myself. We layer enchantments. Fidelius charm, blood wards keyed to my guardianship, anything and everything necessary. But Albus, I won't leave him here." There was a long silence. Dumbledore studied her with those penetrating blue eyes that saw too much. "You're proposing to adopt him," Dumbledore said finally. "To take Harry Potter as your own ward." "Yes. You're unmarried, Minerva. You have a demanding career. You've never expressed interest in children before." "I've taught children for 30 years, Minerva said stiffly. "I understand them perfectly well. Teaching and parenting are vastly different undertakings. Then I'll learn. Minerva's voice was absolute. I learned to become an animagus. I learned to fight Death Eaters. I learned to run Hogwarts in your absence. I can certainly learn to raise one child. It's not that simple. Nothing worthwhile is simple. Minerva softened her tone slightly. Albus, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you my decision. If you leave Harry Potter on this doorstep, I will retrieve him the moment you're gone. I'll take him to my cottage in Hogsmeade and I'll raise him myself. You can help me establish proper protections, or I'll research them on my own. But that boy is not spending one more minute than necessary near people who will despise him. Dumbledore was quiet for a very long time. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled slightly. You care for him already, he observed. James and Lily's son. You never had much patience for James Potter as a student. All that rule-breaking and showing off. But you'd die for his son. I would die for any child who needed protection, Minerva said. But yes, Lily was special. Brilliant, kind, everything a witch should aspire to be. Her son deserves better than this. And if I forbid it? Minerva met his eyes steadily. Then you'd better mean to enforce that prohibition with magic, 'cause I will not comply. It was perhaps the first time in decades that Minerva McGonagall had directly defied Albus Dumbledore, and, to his credit, he recognized the moment for what it was, immovable object meeting unstoppable force. Very well, Dumbledore said quietly. We'll need to move quickly. Petunia must still receive the letter explaining what happened to Lily. She deserves to know her sister is dead, however she feels about magic. But Harry will not stay here. Relief flooded through Minerva, so intense she had to lock her knees to stay upright. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. The magical protections required will be complex. We'll need to visit Gringotts to formalize your guardianship legally. The ministry will have questions. And Minerva, you'll be scrutinized. Every decision you make regarding Harry's upbringing will be examined. People will question your motives, your capabilities, your right to raise the boy who lived. Let them question, Minerva said firmly. I'll answer with results. Hagrid arrived minutes later on Sirius Black's flying motorcycle, carrying a bundle of blankets that contained Harry Potter. The baby was sleeping peacefully, a small cut on his forehead visible beneath his shock of black hair. Professor McGonagall, Hagrid rumbled, tears streaming down his face. Little Harry. Can ye believe it? Lily and James gone. And this little boy survived you know who. Give him to me, Hagrid, Minerva said gently. Hagrid transferred the baby carefully. Minerva looked down at Harry Potter, 15 months old, impossibly small, bearing the lightning bolt scar that marked him as the boy who lived, and felt something shift permanently in her chest. This was James Potter's son. The same messy black hair, the same small nose, but when Harry's eyes fluttered open for a moment, they were Lily's, impossibly green, bright even in darkness. Hello, Harry, Minerva whispered. I'm going to take care of you now, I promise. Harry made a small sound and closed his eyes again, apparently unbothered by the change in guardian. Professor, Hagrid said hesitantly. Where you taking him? Dumbledore said he was going to his aunt and uncle. Change of plans, Dumbledore said. Professor McGonagall will be raising Harry. It's irregular, but I believe it's for the best. Hagrid looked between them, then at Harry in Minerva's arms. His face split into a tentative smile. He'll be safe with ye, Professor. Ye've always been fair to students. Strict but fair. Better in growing up somewhere he's not wanted. Thank you, Hagrid, Minerva said. Now, Albus, we have work to do. The protections will begin tonight, Dumbledore confirmed. Hagrid, return Sirius's motorcycle to him if you can locate him. And Hagrid, not a word about this to anyone until we've formalized the arrangements. Not a word, Professor, Hagrid promised. They left Privet Drive behind, Minerva carrying Harry, Dumbledore walking beside her, both disappearing with soft cracks of apparition once they'd moved beyond the protective wards Dumbledore had already placed around the Dursley home. They appeared in Hogsmeade outside Minerva's cottage, a small, neat stone building with a thatched roof and a garden that was currently dormant in the November cold. Minerva had purchased it years ago, a private retreat from Hogwarts where she could spend weekends and holidays in peace. It had never been meant for a child. She looked at it now with new eyes, already cataloging what would need to change. Protective enchantments, obviously, but also practical considerations. A nursery. Child-safe furniture. Toys, though Minerva had no idea what toys a 15-month-old needed. One step at a time, Dumbledore said, reading her expression. First, the protections, then the legalities, then you can worry about practical parenting. They spent the next 6 hours layering enchantments on the cottage. Dumbledore cast the Fidelius charm with Minerva as secret keeper. The house became unplottable, invisible to anyone Minerva hadn't personally told about its location. Then they worked together on blood wards, adapting the ancient magic to recognize Minerva's accepted guardianship of Lily's son as sufficient to maintain some measure of the protection Lily's sacrifice had created. It wasn't as strong as living with Petunia would have been. Dumbledore was clear about that. But combined with the Fidelius charm and additional defensive enchantments they layered on top, it would keep Harry safer than most children in Britain. He'll still be vulnerable outside these wards, Dumbledore warned as dawn broke. When he goes to Diagon Alley, to Hogwarts eventually, anywhere, public, Death Eaters may recognize him and seek revenge. Then I'll teach him to defend himself, Minerva said. From the moment he's old enough to hold a wand. He's 15 months old, Minerva. Then I have time to prepare. Minerva looked down at Harry, still sleeping peacefully despite the magical activity around him. Albus, I know this is irregular. I know it complicates things. But I also know, I know in my bones, that this is right. This boy deserves more than survival. He deserves a childhood, education, love, even if I'm not particularly demonstrative about it. I believe you'll surprise yourself, Dumbledore said gently, about the demonstrative part. Children have a way of reaching places in our hearts we didn't know existed. Sentiment from Albus Dumbledore? Should I be concerned? Merely observant. Dumbledore conjured a bassinet with a wave of his wand, soft blue fabric and warming charms already in place. For now, rest. Tomorrow we visit Gringotts to formalize guardianship, then the ministry to register the change. And Minerva, prepare yourself for questions. Many questions. I've faced down Death Eaters, Albus. I can handle ministry bureaucrats. After Dumbledore left, Minerva carefully placed Harry in the bassinet and stood watching him sleep. She'd taught thousands of students. She'd fought in a war. She'd mastered magic that most witches never attempted, but she'd never been responsible for a life this young, this vulnerable, this important. I hope I know what I'm doing, she whispered to the sleeping child. Your mother was one of the brightest witches I ever taught. Your father was, well, he was James Potter. Infuriating, rule-breaking, but brave when it mattered. And you survived something impossible. I'll do my best to help you become worthy of that survival. Harry made a small sound in his sleep, one tiny fist escaping the blankets. Minerva reached down and carefully tucked his hand back under the covers, her movements gentle despite their unfamiliarity. Welcome home, Harry Potter, she said quietly. I promise you, this will be a better home than the one Dumbledore planned. And with that promise, Minerva McGonagall became a mother. The first year, learning to parent. The next morning brought chaos. Minerva hadn't anticipated. Harry woke at 5 o'clock, crying. Minerva, who'd been sleeping lightly in case he needed her, rushed to the bassinet and stared down at the screaming infant with something approaching panic. What was wrong? Was he hurt? Ill? Dying? Shh, she attempted, her voice coming out far too sharp. Harry, why are you crying? Harry, predictably, did not answer in words. He simply cried harder, his face turning red with distress. Minerva picked him up carefully, supporting his head the way she vaguely remembered from observing mothers with young children. He felt impossibly light, impossibly fragile. And he smelled, oh dear, the nappy needed changing. Minerva had never changed a nappy in her life. She was a transfiguration master who could turn a desk into a pig, but she had absolutely no idea how to change a nappy. Right, she said aloud, carrying Harry to the small table she'd conjured the night before. Logically, there must be a process. The nappy comes off, you clean the child, a new nappy goes on. Simple enough. It was not simple. 20 minutes later, Minerva had managed to get a clean nappy on Harry, though it was crooked and probably too loose, and had vanished, the soiled one, with perhaps more force than necessary. Harry had stopped crying at least, and was looking up at her with those impossibly green eyes. Are you hungry? Minerva asked. I suppose you must be. But I need to purchase supplies. Food for babies? Clothes that fit you properly? Everything, really. Harry made a small sound that might have been agreement. Excellent. We'll go to Diagon Alley as soon as it's a reasonable hour. Minerva glanced at the clock. 5:30. Far too early for shops. In the meantime, let's see if I can manage to feed you something appropriate. She carried Harry to the kitchen and stared at her supplies. Tea, biscuits, some leftover shepherd's pie from 2 days ago, and a sad-looking apple. None of that is appropriate for an infant, she muttered. Think, Minerva. What do babies eat? Milk, presumably. She had milk for tea, but that was cow's milk, not whatever babies were supposed to drink. This is ridiculous, Minerva announced to Harry, who was now chewing on his own fist. I've defended this castle from Death Eaters. I've taught Transfiguration to students who could barely spell the word, and I'm being defeated by the question of what to feed a 15-month-old child. She flew to Hogwarts, holding Harry carefully, which made the trip awkward but manageable, and went directly to the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey looked up from organizing potions and froze. Minerva, what are you? Is that a baby? This is Harry Potter, Minerva said. I've taken guardianship of him, and I need advice about feeding him and clothing him, and everything else I apparently don't know about childcare. Poppy Pomfrey's expression softened immediately. Oh, Minerva. Come here, sit down. Let me see him. Over the next hour, Poppy taught Minerva the basics. Appropriate foods for a 15-month-old, how to properly change a nappy. Minerva's attempt had indeed been atrocious. What kind of sleep schedule to expect, warning signs of illness, everything a new parent desperately needed to know. You should have asked before taking him, Poppy said. But her tone was gentle. But Minerva, this is a kind thing you're doing. Brave, too. Raising the boy who lived won't be easy. I didn't do it to be kind or brave, Minerva said. I did it because the alternative was unacceptable. That's exactly why it's kind. Poppy conjured a list. Here, everything you need to purchase. Go to Diagon Alley this morning. There's a shop called Wee Wizards near Flourish and Blots. They'll have clothes, furniture, toys, everything. And Minerva, don't try to do this completely alone. Ask for help when you need it. I'm not accustomed to asking for help. Then get accustomed. You're a mother now, not just a professor. That means accepting that you don't know everything. It was perhaps the most humbling statement anyone had ever made to Minerva McGonagall. She returned to the cottage, fed Harry mashed banana, which he ate with surprising enthusiasm, though most of it ended up on his face, and prepared for the trip to Diagon Alley. Right, she told Harry, who was now dressed in the least offensive of the clothes Poppy had provided, hand-me-downs from her nephew, slightly too large but serviceable. We're going shopping. You'll stay close to me at all times. If anyone tries to approach us with questions about your scar or your fame, we'll ignore them politely. Understood? Harry gurgled. I'll take that as agreement. Diagon Alley was moderately busy for a Tuesday morning. Minerva carried Harry carefully, one arm supporting him while the other remained free for her wand. She dressed in Muggle clothing rather than her usual robes, less conspicuous, less likely to be recognized as a Hogwarts professor. They made it to Wee Wizards without incident. The shop was brightly colored, filled with tiny robes and enchanted toys and furniture sized for children. A cheerful witch greeted them. Good morning. How can I? Oh! The witch's eyes had found Harry's scar. Oh my, is he? This is Harry, Minerva said firmly. I need supplies for a 15-month-old. Clothes, furniture, feeding equipment, everything you'd recommend for a child his age. The witch was still staring. You're raising Harry Potter? I am his guardian, yes. Now, the supplies? Right. Yes, of course. Just, wow, Harry Potter. In my shop, the witch pulled herself together with visible effort. Let me show you what we have. By the time they left an hour later, Minerva had purchased enough supplies to furnish a small nursery, a proper crib with safety enchantments, clothes in multiple sizes. Harry would grow quickly, toys that would engage his developing magic, bottles and appropriate foods, and several books on child development that the shopkeeper had insisted were essential. You're very brave, the shopkeeper said as Minerva paid. Raising him on your own. Everyone knows he's famous, but he's also just a baby who needs someone to care for him. You're doing a wonderful thing. I'm doing what's necessary, Minerva corrected. But she felt a small warmth at the words anyway. They returned to the cottage. Minerva spent the afternoon setting up the nursery in what had been her spare bedroom, using Transfiguration to adapt the space for a child. Blue walls, calming, supposedly. Enchanted stars on the ceiling, educational. Protective wards on the window, practical. And the crib positioned where she could hear Harry if he cried at night. There, she said, stepping back to examine her work. A proper room for a proper child. What do you think, Harry? Harry, who was sitting on the floor playing with a set of enchanted blocks that stacked themselves, ignored her completely. Typical, Minerva muttered. I create a magically sophisticated nursery, and you prefer blocks. That evening, after Harry was fed and bathed, another adventure in learning, and tucked into his new crib, Minerva sat in her study and tried to process what she'd done. She'd adopted Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the most famous child in the wizarding world, and she had absolutely no idea if she was doing it correctly. You'll learn, she told herself firmly. You learned everything else. You'll learn this too. From the nursery came a small cry. Minerva was on her feet immediately, wand in hand, ready for threats. Harry had dropped his stuffed owl, purchased that morning, outside the crib and was reaching for it sadly. Minerva retrieved the toy and handed it back. There, crisis averted. Harry clutched the owl and looked up at her with those green eyes. Lily's eyes. Your mother would do this better, Minerva said quietly. She was warm. Kind. Everything I'm not. But Harry, I promise you this. I'll keep you safe. I'll teach you magic. I'll make sure you grow up knowing you're valued. That will have to be enough. Harry yawned and closed his eyes, apparently satisfied. Minerva stood watching him sleep for a long moment, then returned to her study to begin researching the next challenge. Legal guardianship and the inevitable ministry scrutiny. The next morning brought Dumbledore via flu. Ready for Gringotts? He asked. As ready as I'll ever be, Minerva replied. She dressed in her formal robes. This was official business, and she intended to look the part. Harry was in a small carrier that Poppy had provided, enchanted to be comfortable and secure. Gringotts was exactly as imposing as Minerva remembered. The goblins greeted them with professional courtesy that became significantly more interested when Dumbledore explained their business. Guardianship transfer for Harry James Potter, the goblin, Griffhook, according to his nameplate, said slowly. Currently held by no current legal guardian, Dumbledore said. His parents are deceased. I was acting in loco parentis temporarily, but Professor McGonagall is assuming permanent guardianship. And the blood wards have been adapted with alternative protections, Dumbledore said smoothly. The arrangement is unconventional, but magically sound. Griphook's eyes narrowed. The Potter family vault is substantial. The guardian will have access to funds for the child's care. I don't need the Potter money, Minerva said immediately. I have my own income. Nevertheless, guardianship includes financial responsibility. You'll have access to a monthly allowance for Harry's expenses, drawn from the Potter vault. The main inheritance remains sealed until he reaches 17. The paperwork took 2 hours. Minerva signed document after document, each one requiring a magical oath that she would act in Harry's best interests, would not exploit his fame or fortune, would provide appropriate care and education. Done, Griphook said finally. Professor Minerva McGonagall is now the legal magical guardian of Harry James Potter. The ministry will be notified within the hour. Thank you, Minerva said. As they left Gringotts, Dumbledore smiled slightly. How does it feel to be a mother, Minerva? Terrifying, Minerva said honestly. But also, right. This is right, Albus. I know it is. Then trust that feeling, Dumbledore advised. And Minerva, don't hesitate to ask for help. Poppy, Phileas, even Severus if you're desperate, we're all here. Severus Snape? Helping with childcare? He does have experience with children, in his way, though admittedly not with infants. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. I merely suggest keeping your options open. The ministry notification came that evening via owl, a formal letter stating that they'd received notice of the guardianship transfer and would be conducting a home inspection within the week to ensure appropriate living conditions. Of course they will, Minerva muttered. Bureaucrats. She spent the next 3 days preparing, ensuring the cottage met every possible safety standard, organizing documentation of her finances and employment, rehearsing answers to likely questions about her qualifications and intentions. The inspection was conducted by a severe-looking witch named Madame Hopkirk from the Department of Magical Children's Services. Professor McGonagall, Madame Hopkirk said, examining the cottage with sharp eyes. This is highly irregular. You're unmarried, employed full-time, and have no prior experience raising children. I've taught children for 3 decades, Minerva replied crisply. I understand child development, educational needs, and appropriate discipline. Teaching and parenting are different, so I've been told. Nevertheless, I'm committed to providing Harry with excellent care. Madame Hopkirk examined the nursery, the safety wards, Minerva's financial records. She questioned Minerva extensively about her plans. How would she balance teaching with parenting? Who would care for Harry during the school day? What were her educational goals for him? Minerva answered each question thoroughly, presenting the schedule she'd developed. Harry would spend mornings at the cottage with a house elf Dumbledore had assigned to help, over Minerva's initial protests, would join her at Hogwarts in the afternoons where Poppy and other staff could supervise, and would have evenings and weekends with Minerva exclusively. It's unorthodox, Madame Hopkirk said finally. But Professor McGonagall, you're clearly committed. And frankly, given the alternatives, the Dursleys have already declined guardianship in writing, claiming they want nothing to do with that world. You're the best option available. Guardianship approved. Pending annual reviews. After Madame Hopkirk left, Minerva sank into a chair with relief. We passed, she told Harry, who was playing with his blocks again. You're officially mine now, or I'm officially yours, however one phrases these things. Harry looked up at her and smiled, his first real smile since she'd taken him. And Minerva McGonagall, who'd never considered herself a particularly emotional woman, felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. Right then, she said briskly, pulling herself together. Enough sentiment, it's time for dinner, and then we'll begin your magical education. You're never too young to learn basic transfiguration theory, Harry gurgled happily. Minerva allowed herself a small smile. I think we're going to manage just fine, you and I. Early childhood ages 2. 7. Growing up magical by the time Harry Potter turned 2, he had established a routine that would have impressed even the most organized of parents. 6 o'clock. Wake up, precisely as if he had an internal alarm. 6:30. Breakfast with Minerva. Weak tea. Never too young to develop proper British habits. 7 o'clock. Morning lessons, currently consisting of picture books about magical creatures and basic counting. 9 o'clock. Playtime in the cottage garden while Minerva prepared her teaching materials. 11 o'clock. Then down for a nap 2 o'clock. Trip to Hogwarts with Minerva, where he'd spend afternoons in her office or with various professors. 6 o'clock. Dinner at the cottage. 7 o'clock. Bath and bedtime story. 8 o'clock. You've created a tiny soldier, Poppy Pomfrey observed one afternoon, watching 2-year-old Harry sit quietly in Minerva's office, carefully turning the pages of a book about transfiguration basics that he couldn't possibly understand yet. I've created a disciplined child, Minerva corrected. Structure is important, Poppy. Children thrive on consistency. Children also thrive on spontaneity and play. He plays, for precisely 1 hour each morning and again in the evenings when appropriate. Poppy shook her head but smiled. Only you could apply military precision to raising a toddler. Though I'll admit, he seems happy enough. Harry was, in his way, happy. He didn't know that other children might have more chaotic households, more lenient parents, more toys. What he knew was that Minerva was consistent, present, and while not effusively affectionate, clearly devoted to his well-being. When Harry fell and scraped his knee at 18 months, Minerva had been there instantly, cleaning the wound with practiced efficiency and a healing charm. When he had nightmares at 20 months, waking screaming, though he couldn't articulate what frightened him, Minerva sat beside his crib, reading aloud from Transfiguration texts until he calmed. When he took his first unsteady steps at 14 months, Minerva had actually smiled. A real, genuine smile of pride. Well done, Harry, she'd said. Excellent coordination. We'll have you on a broomstick in no time. By age 3, Harry could recite the basic principles of transfiguration, intent, movement, and magical focus, could identify 15 common magical creatures from illustrations, and had developed the ability to sit quietly for up to an hour while Minerva worked. An impressive feat for a toddler. He'd also developed a personality that was distinctly his own, despite Minerva's structured approach to parenting. No, Harry said firmly, when Minerva presented him with vegetables at dinner one evening. Harry, you need to eat your greens. They're essential for proper nutrition. No, thank you, Harry amended, apparently having absorbed some of Minerva's emphasis on politeness. It's not optional. Harry looked at her with those green eyes, Lily's eyes, and Minerva felt her resolve waver slightly. But no. She'd read the parenting books. Consistency was crucial. 3 bites, she negotiated. 3 bites of vegetables, then you may have pudding. Harry considered this. 2 bites? Where did you learn to negotiate? Minerva asked, exasperated. Uncle Phileas, Harry said proudly. Of course. Minerva made a mental note to have words with Professor Flitwick. 3 bites. Final offer. Harry sighed dramatically. Where had he learned that? And ate his vegetables. There, Minerva said with satisfaction. That wasn't so difficult, was it? But he was grinning. Despite her structured approach, Minerva was learning to adapt. Toddlers, she'd discovered, didn't respond well to lectures about proper behavior. They responded to consistency, yes, but also to patience, and occasionally to creative solutions. When Harry refused to stay in bed at age 2, climbing out of his crib repeatedly, Minerva didn't punish. Instead, she transfigured the crib into a proper bed with enchanted railings that would alert her if he tried to leave but wouldn't trap him. You're growing up, she told him. This is a big boy's bed. But staying in bed at night is part of being a big boy. Understood? Harry, pleased by the big boy designation, stayed in bed. When Harry had a tantrum at age 3 over not being allowed to touch her wand, Minerva waited for him to exhaust himself, then sat down and explained. Magic requires control, Harry. Your magic is already quite strong. I can feel it. But you're not old enough yet to channel it safely. When you're older, you'll have your own wand. Until then, touching mine could hurt you or others. Do you understand? Harry sniffled. When can I have a wand? When you're 11 and attend Hogwarts. That's forever. It's 8 years. It will pass quickly, I assure you. By age 4, Harry was spending more time at Hogwarts than at the cottage. Minerva had established a small area in her office, a corner with books, toys, and a comfortable chair where Harry could entertain himself while she taught or attended meetings. The Hogwarts staff had become his extended family. Professor Flitwick taught him simple levitation theory. Though Harry couldn't actually perform magic yet, he could understand the concepts. Professor Sprout let him help water plants in the greenhouses, explaining each magical plant's properties. Hagrid, who visited from his hut specifically to see little Harry, told him stories about magical creatures that were probably inappropriate for a 4-year-old, but that Harry loved. And then there was Professor Snape. Harry's first encounter with Severus Snape had occurred when Harry was 2. Minerva had brought Harry to a staff meeting where childcare had fallen through, and Harry had toddled into the meeting room with her. Snape had stared at the child with an expression Minerva couldn't quite read. Shock, certainly. Some pain. And something else. Recognition, perhaps, of James Potter's son. Potter, Snape had said quietly. Professor Snape, Minerva had replied coolly. Harry, this is Professor Snape. He teaches potions. Harry, at 2, had simply stared at the tall, dark-haired man with open curiosity. He has her eyes, Snape had said, so quietly Minerva almost missed it. Yes, he does. They hadn't spoken further that day. But as Harry grew older and spent more time at Hogwarts, encounters with Snape became inevitable. At age 4, Harry wandered into the potions classroom. While Minerva was searching for him, he'd slipped out of her office. Toddlers were remarkably quick when they wanted to be. Snape was preparing ingredients for a lesson, his movements precise and controlled. You shouldn't be here, Snape said without looking up. This classroom is dangerous for children. I'm sorry, Harry said politely, Minerva's influence evident. I was exploring. Snape finally looked at him. Exploring, into a potions laboratory where a single wrong touch could kill you. I didn't touch anything, Harry pointed out. A fact that likely saved your life. Snape's tone was harsh, but he'd moved between Harry and the ingredients as he spoke, blocking access. Go back to Professor McGonagall. Are you friends with my mum? Harry asked instead. Snape went very still. Your mother is dead? I know, but were you friends? Before? Yes, Snape said after a long pause. We were friends. A very long time ago. What was she like? Brilliant. Kind. Far better than most people deserved. Snape's voice was carefully neutral. Now go, before Professor McGonagall discovers you're missing and blames me for it. Harry left, but the encounter stuck with him. Professor Snape was scary, yes, but he'd known his mum. That made him interesting. When Minerva found Harry 5 minutes later, he asked, Did Professor Snape really know my mum? Yes, Minerva said. They attended Hogwarts together. Why? He said she was brilliant and kind. She was both those things. Also brave and loyal and strong. Minerva knelt to Harry's level. Harry, Professor Snape knew both your parents. Your father and Snape weren't friends. They were enemies, in fact. That has nothing to do with you, but it matters to him. If he seems cold or distant, that's why. Not because of anything you've done. Because I look like my dad? You have your father's hair and face, yes, but you have your mother's eyes and, I hope, her character. Try to be patient with Professor Snape. He's complicated. At age 5, Harry experienced his first major magical outburst. Minerva had taken him to Diagon Alley for new clothes. He was growing rapidly and needed robes that actually fit. While she was speaking with the shopkeeper, 3 older children approached Harry. "You're Harry Potter," one exclaimed. "The boy who lived." "Hello," Harry said cautiously. Minerva had taught him to be polite, but wary of strangers fixating on his fame. "Show us your scar," another demanded. "No, thank you." "Why not?" "You're famous. You should show everyone." "My scar is private," Harry said, repeating what Minerva had told him. "Please leave me alone." But the children didn't leave. They crowded closer, one reaching to push Harry's hair aside to see the lightning bolt scar. Harry's magic exploded outward. Not violently, he was only 5, and his magic was still developing. But every piece of clothing in the shop suddenly turned bright red and gold, Gryffindor colors, though Harry didn't know that yet. The children stumbled backward, startled, and Harry stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, his green eyes bright with anger and fear. "Harry," Minerva was at his side instantly. "It's all right. You're safe. Breathe with me. In, out, there." She turned to the other children with an expression that could have frozen lava. "You will not touch him again. You will not demand anything from him. You will leave this shop immediately, or I will speak to your parents about appropriate behavior. Understood?" The children fled. Minerva knelt beside Harry, who was trembling. "You had an accidental magic outburst. It happens when young wizards experience strong emotions. You're not in trouble." "I scared them," Harry whispered. "They scared you first. You defended yourself. That's appropriate, though we'll work on controlling those reactions as you grow." She pulled him into a brief, rare hug. "You did nothing wrong, Harry. They crossed a boundary, and your magic responded. We'll practice controlling it, but for now, you're safe." That night, Minerva began teaching Harry meditation techniques, simple breathing exercises designed to help him recognize and control emotional magic. "Magic responds to emotion," she explained. "Fear, anger, joy, all of these can trigger accidental magic. But if you learn to recognize what you're feeling and calm yourself, you can prevent unwanted outbursts." "Will I always have magic?" Harry asked. "Yes. You're a wizard, Harry. Magic is part of who you are. And you're going to be a powerful wizard. I can already feel it. But power without control is dangerous, so we practice control." They practiced every evening. Breathing exercises, meditation, focus training. By age 6, Harry could calm himself from anger or fear within minutes, an impressive feat for a child his age. He also began learning basic wand movements, though he had no wand to actually use. Swish and flick, Minerva demonstrated with her wand, performing the levitation charm. The movement is as important as the words. When you're older and have a wand, you'll already have muscle memory. Harry practiced with a stick, copying Minerva's movements precisely. Swish and flick, circular motion for transfiguration, sharp jab for defensive spells. "Why am I learning this if I can't do magic yet?" Harry asked. "Because preparation is everything," Minerva said. "When you get to Hogwarts at age 11, you'll be ahead of other students. You'll understand the theory and movements already. That gives you an advantage." "Will I need an advantage?" Minerva paused, considering her answer carefully. Harry was 6, old enough for some truth, too young for all of it. "You're famous, Harry. People will expect things from you because of what happened when you were a baby. Some will expect you to be brilliant without effort. Others will expect you to fail, because fame doesn't equal skill. By being genuinely skilled, by working hard and learning properly, you prove them all wrong. You show that you're Harry Potter the person, not just the boy who lived." Harry absorbed this seriously. "I want to be good at magic." "Then you will be. I'll make certain of it." By age 7, Harry's magical education had advanced significantly. He could recite the Gryffindor house values, Courage, bravery, determination. Identify most common magical plants. Explain the basic theory behind numerous spells, and perform wand movements with precision that would have impressed most first-year students. He could also read fluently, write in neat script, Minerva's influence, perform arithmetic suitable for children 3 years older, and had begun learning basic Latin for spell etymology. You're turning him into a tiny academic, Phileas observed during one of Harry's visits to the Charms classroom. I'm ensuring he has a proper foundation, Minerva corrected. He's 7, Minerva. He should be playing, making friends his own age. He plays for precisely, I know, 1 hour in the morning and again in the evenings. Scheduled playtime. It's very you. Phileas smiled gently. But Minerva, Harry doesn't have friends his own age. He spends all his time with adults. Don't you think he might be lonely? Minerva felt a pang of guilt. I've considered that, but taking him to play with other children means exposing him to questions about his fame, about his scar, about his parents. It's simpler to keep him here. Simpler isn't always better. He needs socialization, Minerva. He needs to learn to interact with peers, not just adults who defer to his guardian. I'll consider it, Minerva said stiffly. She did more than consider it. That weekend, she took Harry to Hogsmeade specifically to interact with other magical children. The village had a small park where local families often brought their children. Minerva sat on a bench, watching Harry approach a group of children playing with a quaffle. Can I play? Harry asked politely. The children turned. One, a girl about Harry's age, pointed at his scar. You're Harry Potter. The famous one. I'm just Harry, Harry said, repeating what Minerva had told him to say. Can I play? If you're really Harry Potter, show us magic, a boy demanded. I'm not allowed to do magic outside of home, Harry explained. And I'm too young for a wand anyway. But I know how to throw a quaffle. My friend Madame Hooch taught me. The children exchanged glances. Then, apparently deciding that knowing Quidditch was more interesting than being famous, they let him join. Minerva watched Harry play, watched him laugh when he caught the quaffle, watched him help a smaller child reach high enough to throw, watched him be just a 7-year-old boy instead of the boy who lived. When they returned to the cottage that evening, Harry was exhausted but happy. Did you enjoy yourself? Minerva asked. We played quaffle toss, and then we raced, and then Lily, that's the girl with red hair, she showed me how to skip stones on the pond. Can we go back next weekend? Yes, Minerva said. I think that would be excellent. She'd been so focused on preparing Harry for the future that she'd nearly forgotten he deserved a childhood too. Phileas was right. Balance mattered. That night, as she tucked Harry into bed, she asked, Are you happy, Harry? Living here with me? Harry looked at her seriously with those green eyes. Yes, you're strict and you make me study a lot and you don't hug me much. But you're always here when I need you. You read to me every night. You teach me magic. You're my mum. It was the first time Harry had called her that. Minerva felt something crack in her chest. I'm not very good at being a mum, she said quietly. I'm better at being a professor. You're good at both, Harry said confidently. Just very organized about it. Despite herself, Minerva smiled. Well, that's accurate. Now sleep. Tomorrow we're reviewing Transfiguration theory. Can we also go to the park? If you complete your lessons properly, yes. Deal, Harry said, and closed his eyes. Minerva stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her son. Because that's what he was now, regardless of blood. Sleep peacefully. 7 years. She'd been raising Harry for 7 years. In 4 more years, he'd go to Hogwarts as a student. She'd have to let him navigate that world himself, though she'd still be there as his professor and guardian. But for now, for these precious 4 years, Harry was still hers. Still the small boy who called her mum when he was tired, who sat in her office reading quietly while she worked, who was growing into someone remarkable. I think we're doing all right, she whispered. Despite my deficiencies in demonstrative affection. From the bed, Harry smiled in his sleep. Minerva quietly closed the door and returned to her study, where a new challenge awaited, preparing Harry for the inevitable revelation about his fame, his parents' murder, and the fact that someday the dark wizard who'd tried to kill him might return. But that conversation could wait. For now, Harry was 7 and happy and safe. That would have to be enough. The growing years. Ages 8, 10. Preparing for Hogwarts, Harry's 8th birthday. brought an unexpected complication. A letter from Sirius Black. Minerva found it attached to an owl that was far too expensive for normal post. The envelope was addressed in elegant script to Harry Potter, C/O, Professor M. McGonagall, Hogsmeade. She opened it carefully, checking for curses, paranoia from the war, but justified. The letter inside was written in the same elegant hand. Dear Harry, you don't know me, but I was your father's best friend. My name is Sirius Black, and I'm your godfather. I've only just learned that you're being raised by Professor McGonagall instead of your aunt and uncle. I wanted to write sooner, but I've been dealing with some complications. I'd like to meet you, if Professor McGonagall permits it. I have stories about your father that I think you'd enjoy hearing. I also have some things that belong to James that I'd like to give you when you're ready. I understand if you'd rather not meet a stranger. But know that I'm here if you ever want to know more about your parents. Your godfather, Sirius Black. Minerva read the letter 3 times, emotions warring. Sirius Black was, by all accounts, a good man, an Auror now having been cleared of any suspicion of Death Eater involvement after extensive investigation. He'd been James Potter's best friend, part of the group that had called themselves the Marauders. He was also a reminder that Minerva wasn't Harry's only family connection, that there were people with more traditional claims to him. Problem? Dumbledore asked. He'd flew in for his weekly check-in with Harry, bearing lemon drops and stories. Letter from Sirius Black. He wants to meet Harry. Dumbledore read the letter over her shoulder. Ah, yes, Sirius mentioned to me that he planned to reach out. He's been rather distraught that he wasn't contacted when Harry's guardianship was determined. He was in Auror training, Minerva said defensively. Unreachable for weeks at a time. I couldn't exactly wait for his convenience. No one is suggesting you did anything wrong, Minerva. But Sirius is Harry's godfather. James and Lily chose him specifically. He has a right to be part of Harry's life if you permit it. If I permit it, Minerva repeated. You mean I could refuse? You're Harry's legal guardian. You have final say over who has access to him. But Minerva, consider what Harry needs. He should know about his parents from people who loved them. Sirius can provide that in ways you cannot. Minerva knew he was right. It still felt like failure. That evening, she showed Harry the letter, reading it aloud. A godfather? Harry asked. What's that? When you were born, your parents chose someone to be your guardian if anything happened to them. They chose Sirius Black. But circumstances meant you came to me instead. Do you want me to go live with him? Harry asked, voice small. Absolutely not, Minerva said firmly. You're my son, Harry. That doesn't change. But Sirius was your father's best friend. He can tell you stories about James and Lily that I don't know. Would you like to meet him? Harry considered this seriously. Will you be there? If you want me there, yes. Then yes, I want to meet him. They arranged a meeting at the cottage for the following Saturday. Minerva prepared Harry carefully. Sirius would probably be emotional, would probably see James in Harry's face, might be overwhelming with enthusiasm. Remember that you're allowed to set boundaries, Minerva told him. If he makes you uncomfortable, tell me. If you want him to leave, tell me. This is your home, and you control who's welcome here. When Sirius Black arrived via flu, Minerva's first thought was that he looked like trouble. Handsome, yes. Dark hair worn slightly too long. Gray eyes that held mischief even in serious moments. Aristocratic features that suggested his pure-blood heritage. But also young. Only 22, barely an adult himself. Professor McGonagall? Sirius said politely, though she could see tension in his shoulders. Thank you for allowing this, Mr. Black. Please sit down. Harry, this is Sirius Black. Harry had been sitting quietly in his usual chair, watching the stranger with cautious curiosity. Now he stood and offered his hand. Minerva had taught him proper manners. Hello, sir. Sirius stared at Harry with an expression of such pain and longing that Minerva nearly intervened. Then he shook himself and took Harry's hand gently. Hello, Harry. You can call me Sirius. And, Merlin, you look just like James. Exactly like him. Except the eyes. Those are Lily's. Everyone says that, Harry said. Did you really know my dad? I was his best friend from age 11. We did everything together. Pranks, Quidditch, getting in trouble. James was brilliant. Reckless and arrogant sometimes, but brilliant. They sat down, and Minerva watched carefully as Sirius told Harry stories about James Potter. Some were appropriate, James's first Quidditch match, his talent for transfiguration, his loyalty to his friends. Some Minerva had to gently redirect when they veered toward pranks that had endangered other students. Your father could turn into a stag, Sirius said at one point. An animagus. It took us years to learn, but we managed it. Really? Harry's eyes were wide. What could you turn into? A dog. A big black dog. Your mum thought it was fitting. Said I had the loyalty of a dog and the brains of one, too. Harry giggled. Minerva felt a pang at how easily Sirius made him laugh. After an hour, Minerva suggested Sirius might want to come back another time. Harry was beginning to look overwhelmed. Of course, Sirius said. He stood, then hesitated. Harry, I know Professor McGonagall is raising you. I'm not trying to take you away from her. But I was your father's best friend, and I'm your godfather. I'd like to be part of your life, if you're willing. Like an uncle? Harry asked. Exactly like an uncle. Okay, I'd like that. After Sirius left, Harry was quiet for a long time. Finally, he really loved my dad, didn't he? Yes, Minerva said. They were like brothers. Do you think my dad would be happy I'm with you instead of him? Minerva chose her words carefully. I think your father would be happy that you're safe, loved, and being raised to value education and integrity. Whether that's with me or Sirius or anyone else, wouldn't matter as much as you being well cared for. I like Sirius, Harry said, but I'm glad I'm with you. He seems fun, but not very organized. An astute observation, Minerva said dryly. Sirius became a regular visitor after that. Once a month, then twice, then weekly. He brought gifts, which Minerva had to regulate. Too many sweets, too many joke items from Zonkos, told stories, and gradually became Uncle Sirius in truth. He also served as a useful counterbalance to Minerva's structured approach. Where she emphasized discipline, Sirius encouraged play. Where she focused on academic preparation, Sirius taught Harry to have fun. Where she was reserved, Sirius was effusive with affection. You're good for him, Minerva admitted to Sirius during one visit while Harry was occupied with a puzzle Sirius had brought. So are you, Sirius replied. James would approve, you know. He respected you, said you were the only professor who could actually control him, which he found both annoying and impressive. And Lily adored you. She talked about how you encouraged her when other professors were dismissive of Muggleborns. Lily was exceptional. She needed no encouragement from me. She valued it anyway. Sirius watched Harry work on the puzzle. He's lucky, you know. Growing up with someone who actually wants him, who teaches him properly instead of just existing around him. Are you referring to the Dursleys? I saw them once, visited right after James and Lily died, before I knew you'd taken Harry. Petunia slammed the door in my face when I asked about him. Said she wanted nothing to do with that world or that boy. Sirius's voice was bitter. You saved him from that. Thank you. At age 9, Harry began showing signs of truly powerful magic. Minerva had been teaching him transfiguration theory for years, walking him through the principles without letting him attempt actual spells. But one afternoon, while explaining how to transfigure a match into a needle, Harry had picked up one of the matches and the match turned into a perfect silver needle. Minerva stared. Harry, did you just... I transfigured it? Harry looked amazed. But I don't have a wand. Some witches and wizards can perform wandless magic. It's rare, requires immense power and focus. But apparently you can do it. Or at least, you just did. They experimented. Harry could perform simple transfiguration without a wand, matches to needles, water to ice, colors changing on fabric. Nothing complex, and it exhausted him quickly. But the ability was there. Don't tell anyone, Minerva instructed. This kind of power will make people nervous. Practice privately, with me, but don't demonstrate it publicly. Why would people be nervous? Because powerful wizards who can perform wandless magic are rare, and people fear what's rare. They'll either want to exploit your ability or suppress it. Better to keep it private until you're older and can protect yourself. Harry understood. He'd been dealing with his fame long enough to know that being special wasn't always good. At age 10, 1 year before Hogwarts, Minerva sat Harry down for a serious conversation. Next year you'll attend Hogwarts as a student, she began. This means several things will change. First, I'll be Professor McGonagall to you in public. Not Mum, not Minerva. Professor McGonagall. Even in private? Harry asked, looking hurt. In my office. When we're alone, You can call me whatever you're comfortable with. But in classes, in the Great Hall, anywhere other students can hear, it must be Professor. Do you understand why? You can't show favoritism. Exactly. I'm your mother, but I'm also the deputy headmistress and your Transfiguration professor. I'll hold you to the same standards as every other student. I may even be harder on you to avoid accusations of bias. That seems unfair. It's necessary. Second, you'll be sorted into a house. I was Gryffindor, as were your parents. But the sorting hat chooses based on your values and personality. You might be Gryffindor, or you might be Ravenclaw given your academic focus. Whichever house you're sorted into, I'll be proud of you. What if I'm in Slytherin? Then you'll be in Slytherin, Minerva said calmly. The house doesn't define your character, Harry. Your choices define your character. Some of the bravest witches and wizards I've known were Slytherins, like Professor Snape. Professor Snape is complicated, but yes, he's Slytherin, and he's also one of the most courageous people I know, even if he'd hex me for saying so. Harry absorbed this. What else changes? You'll make friends your own age, you'll attend classes with students who don't know you as well as the Hogwarts staff does. Some will be kind, some won't. Some will want to be your friend because you're Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Others will dislike you for the same reason. You'll need to learn to distinguish genuine friendship from people using you. How do I tell the difference? By watching how they treat others, not just you. By seeing if they respect your boundaries when you set them. By noticing whether they're interested in you as a person or just your fame. Minerva paused. Ron Weasley will be in your year, Arthur Weasley's youngest son. I've met the family. They're good people. Ron will likely be a genuine friend if you give him the chance. Anyone else I should know about? Draco Malfoy. His father Lucius was associated with certain dark elements during the war. Draco himself has been raised to believe blood purity matters. He may try to befriend you. The famous Harry Potter would be quite a prize for the Malfoy family. Be polite but cautious. You're telling me not to trust people. I'm telling you to trust carefully, Minerva corrected. There's a difference. Harry, you've been sheltered here. Protected. Hogwarts will expose you to the full range of wizarding society. The good, the bad, the prejudiced, the kind. I've tried to prepare you, but ultimately, you'll need to navigate it yourself. Will you help if I need it? Always. But I'll also expect you to try first. Coming to me should be when you've exhausted other options, not your first instinct. You're growing up, Harry. Part of that is learning to handle challenges independently. Harry nodded slowly. I'm scared. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. Just don't let it paralyze you. You're brilliant, disciplined, and kind. You'll do well. That summer, Minerva increased Harry's preparation intensity. They reviewed Transfiguration theory daily. She taught him the wand movements for every first-year spell. She drilled him on Hogwarts history, house values, proper etiquette for various social situations. You're preparing me like I'm going to war, Harry observed. You're going to Hogwarts, Minerva replied. Close enough. She also took him to Diagon Alley for his school supplies, a trip that proved both exciting and challenging. The moment they entered the alley, people recognized Harry. Whispers followed them. Witches and wizards stopped to stare. Several tried to approach, asking for autographs or simply wanting to touch the famous scar. No thank you, Harry said politely but firmly, exactly as Minerva had taught him. I appreciate your interest, but I'd like privacy, please. Most people respected that. A few didn't. Minerva had to physically step between Harry and one overly enthusiastic witch who wanted a photograph. My son has declined, Minerva said coldly. Please respect his wishes. At Flourish and Blots, they encountered a bushy-haired girl, roughly Harry's age, clutching a stack of books that included several that weren't on the Hogwarts list. Excuse me, the girl said, noticing Harry. You're Harry Potter. I've read all about you in modern magical history. Is it true you defeated you-know-who as a baby? I was 15 months old, Harry said. I don't remember it. And please, just call me Harry. I'm Hermione Granger, the girl said, apparently thrilled to meet him. I'm Muggle-born. I've been reading everything I can about the magical world. Did you know that Hogwarts was founded over 1,000 years ago by 4 of the greatest witches and wizards of the age? Yes, Harry said. Godric Gryffindor, Rowena Ravenclaw, Helga Hufflepuff, and Salazar Slytherin. Hermione's eyes lit up. You've read Hogwarts, a history too? My mother, my guardian, Made me read it 3 times, Harry said, gesturing to Minerva. Hermione looked at Minerva and seemed to make a connection. You're Professor McGonagall. You teach Transfiguration. The book says you're one of the most accomplished witches in Britain. The book is generous, Minerva said dryly. But yes, I teach Transfiguration. And you are? Hermione Granger, Professor. I'm starting Hogwarts this year. I'm so excited. I've been practicing spells from the textbooks, though I know we're not supposed to, but I wanted to be prepared and— Miss Granger, Minerva interrupted gently. I appreciate your enthusiasm. However, attempting spells without proper instruction can be dangerous. I recommend reading the theory but waiting for classroom instruction to practice. Yes, of course. Hermione deflated slightly. I just wanted to make sure I'm ready. You'll be fine, Harry said. The books are pretty clear about the theory, and Professor McGonagall is an excellent teacher. How would you know? You haven't been to Hogwarts yet. She's been teaching me privately for years, Harry said. I've been learning magic since I was old enough to hold a wand, even though I didn't have one until recently. They talked for another few minutes before Minerva gently reminded Harry they had more shopping to complete. But as they left, she noticed Harry looking back at Hermione thoughtfully. Potential friend? She asked. Maybe. She's very intense, but she knows a lot. That's impressive. Miss Granger will likely be top of your year academically, unless you claim that position, of course. Is that a challenge? Consider it an observation. And Harry, you're allowed to have friends who are smarter than you. Intelligence in others isn't a threat, it's an asset. Their final stop was Ollivander's. The wand maker himself served them, his silvery eyes examining Harry with unsettling intensity. Harry Potter, Ollivander said softly, I've been expecting you. The fitting process took longer than Minerva anticipated. Wand after wand failed to choose Harry. Too rigid, too flexible. Wrong core, wrong wood. Finally, Ollivander pulled out a box from the back. Holly and Phoenix feather, 11 inches. Supple, try this. The moment Harry touched it, warmth spread through his hand. Red and gold sparks shot from the tip. The wand felt right in a way none of the others had. Curious, Ollivander murmured. Very curious. What's curious? Minerva asked sharply. The phoenix whose tail feather resides in that wand gave only one other feather. Just one. That wand's brother chose a very different wizard. 13.5 inches. You. The wand that gave you that scar, Mr. Potter. Harry's hand tightened on the wand. My wand is brother to Voldemort's? The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Diariuju, Potter. It's not always clear why. But I think we must expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. Harry will do great things that are good, Minerva said firmly. Come along, Harry. We have what we need. Outside, Harry was quiet. The wand connection troubles you, Minerva observed. Wouldn't it trouble you? My wand is connected to the wand of the wizard who killed my parents. Your wand is connected, yes, but you are not Voldemort. The wand chose you for your own merits, not because of that connection. Remember what I've taught you. It's our choices that define us, not our abilities or our connections. You'll use that wand for good. That's what matters. 1 week before term started, Minerva gave Harry a gift, a leather journal with his initials embossed on the cover. What's this for? Harry asked. For writing. Thoughts, observations, experiences. At Hogwarts, you'll encounter things I can't help you with directly. Writing them down will help you process them. And Harry, if you ever need to tell me something, but can't say it aloud, write it in this journal. I'll read it and respond. A private conversation between us, even when we must maintain professional distance publicly. Thank you, Harry said, clutching the journal. You're welcome. Now, let's review the Transfiguration curriculum one more time. I expect you to achieve top marks, and that requires preparation. Yes, Professor, Harry said, grinning. Save the professor for school. For now, you're still allowed to call me Mum. The night before Harry left for Hogwarts, Minerva couldn't sleep. She sat in her study, staring at the picture on her desk, Harry at age 7, grinning with his front tooth missing, holding up a perfectly transfigured needle. 10 years. She'd raised him for 10 years. Tomorrow, he'd leave for Hogwarts. He'd still be hers, yes, but he'd also be his own person, navigating a world she couldn't fully control. Ready or not, she whispered to the photograph, Here we go. Hogwarts years 1 through 3. The student Potter platform 9 3/4 was chaos. Families crowded the platform, parents fussing over children, owls hooting from cages, cats yowling in protest at the noise. The Hogwarts Express gleamed red in the morning light, steam billowing from its smokestack. Minerva stood with Harry, both of them having taken the Flu Network to King's Cross before walking to the platform. Harry's trunk, packed with meticulous care the night before, was already loaded onto the train. His owl, a snowy white female he'd named Hedwig, sat in her cage, looking supremely unimpressed by the commotion. "Remember," Minerva said, her voice pitched low so only Harry could hear. "In public, I'm Professor McGonagall. You'll sit with other first years on the train. You'll make friends. You'll not mention our relationship unless directly asked, and even then, keep it simple. Professor McGonagall as my guardian is sufficient." "I remember," Harry said. He was trying to look brave, but Minerva could see tension in his shoulders. "And Harry, you're going to be brilliant. I have no doubts about that. But please try to enjoy yourself. Hogwarts isn't just about academics. It's about growing up, making mistakes, learning who you are. Don't spend all your time trying to be perfect. You've spent 10 years teaching me to be perfect. I've spent 10 years teaching you to be excellent. There's a difference. Excellence is sustainable. Perfection is exhausting." Minerva hesitated, then did something she rarely did in public. She pulled Harry into a brief, tight hug. "I'm proud of you. Whatever house you're sorted into, whatever marks you achieve, whatever choices you make, I'm proud of you." Harry hugged her back fiercely. "Thank you. For everything. For taking me in, for raising me, for being my mum." Minerva's eyes stung. "Go on, then. Before I become maudlin and embarrass us both." Harry grinned, grabbed Hedwig's cage, and boarded the train. Minerva watched him go, her heart clenching with an emotion she hadn't expected to feel quite so intensely. This was what parents felt, she realized. This terror mixed with pride. This desperate hope that you'd done enough, taught enough, prepared your child sufficiently for the world they were about to face. "He'll be fine," a voice said beside her. Minerva turned to find Molly Weasley standing there, having just said goodbye to her youngest son Ron. Molly's eyes were wet with tears, but she was smiling. "They all leave us eventually," Molly continued. "But Minerva, you've raised that boy well. Everyone at the ministry knows it. Harry Potter growing up with Professor McGonagall, learning magic and manners and discipline. You've given him a remarkable foundation." "I hope so," Minerva said quietly. "I know so. Now come on, we both have things to do. The train's about to leave." They stepped back as the whistle blew. The Hogwarts Express began moving, slowly at first, then gathering speed. Minerva caught a glimpse of Harry in a compartment window. He was sitting across from a red-haired boy, Ron Weasley, presumably, and both were already talking animatedly. Good, he was making friends. Minerva turned and left the platform, already mentally shifting into professor mode. She had a classroom to prepare, lesson plans to finalize, and a sorting ceremony to help conduct. And in a few hours she'd see Harry sorted into his house. She was determined not to show favoritism. Absolutely determined. Even if it killed her. On the train, Harry found himself in a compartment with Ron Weasley and eventually Hermione Granger. Ron had introduced himself immediately. "I'm Ron Weasley." "Blimey, you're Harry Potter." Sorry, I know you probably get that all the time. My brothers told me you'd be starting this year, but I didn't think I'd actually meet you." "Just Harry is fine," Harry said, already falling into the response Minerva had taught him. "And you're Arthur Weasley's son?" "Professor McGonagall, my guardian. She knows your father. Says he's good people." "Your guardian's Professor McGonagall?" Ron's eyes widened. "Bloody hell. My brothers say she's brilliant but terrifying. What's it like living with her?" "Structured," Harry said honestly. "She's very organized, very big on schedules and proper study habits. But she cares. She's just not very demonstrative about it. My mum's the opposite. Always hugging, always fussing. Drives us mental sometimes." Ron grinned. "But yeah, she cares. Just louder about it." They bonded quickly over discussions of Quidditch. Ron supported the Chudley Cannons. Harry, influenced by Minerva's own team loyalty, supported Montrose Magpies, Chocolate Frogs, and their shared nervousness about the sorting. When Hermione arrived looking for Neville Longbottom's lost toad, she recognized Harry immediately. "Oh, Harry, From Diagon Alley, have you been practicing Transfiguration? I tried the basic color-changing charm from the first-year textbook and managed to turn my mother's tea purple, though she wasn't very pleased. Hermione, Harry interrupted gently. Breathe, and no, I haven't been practicing from the textbook. Professor McGonagall won't let me practice unsupervised. Says it's dangerous without proper instruction. She's your guardian, isn't she? That must be amazing living with a Hogwarts professor. You must know so much already. Some, Harry admitted, but she's been very clear that knowing theory and actually performing magic are different things. I'm starting Hogwarts like everyone else. That wasn't entirely true. Harry's 10 years of preparation had given him advantages most first years couldn't imagine. But Minerva had drilled into him the importance of not boasting about it. Excellence speaks for itself, she'd said. You don't need to announce your abilities, simply demonstrate them when appropriate. When they arrived at Hogsmeade Station, Hagrid was there to greet the first years. Harry! Hagrid boomed, his face splitting into a huge grin. Look at Ye, all grown up. Ready for Hogwarts? Hello, Hagrid, Harry said warmly. He'd known Hagrid for years through his visits to Hogwarts with Minerva. Yes, very ready. Professor McGonagall must be proud. Told me just as yesterday she was nervous about Ye starting, though she'd never admit it publicly. The boat ride across the lake was magical. Harry had seen Hogwarts thousands of times, but never from this angle, never illuminated against the night sky like something out of a fairy tale. Ron sat beside him, equally awed. It's massive, Ron breathed. How do you find your way around? Carefully, Harry said. And you learn the shortcuts. There are a lot of them. How do you know about shortcuts already? I grew up visiting. My guardian works here, remember? I've spent a lot of time exploring. When they reached the castle and were herded into the antechamber outside the Great Hall, Minerva was waiting. She looked exactly as she always did, emerald green robes, her hair in its usual tight bun, her expression stern and controlled. But when her eyes found Harry in the crowd of first years, he saw the briefest flash of warmth before her professional mask reasserted itself. Welcome to Hogwarts, she said crisply, her voice carrying over the nervous chatter. In a few moments you'll be sorted into your houses. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. Your house will be your family while you're here. Your triumphs will earn you points. Your mistakes will lose points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points wins the House Cup. She explained the process, then led them into the Great Hall. Harry had seen the Great Hall before, but never like this. Filled with students, floating candles illuminating the enchanted ceiling, the staff table with all the professors he'd known his whole life, and there, in the center, was Dumbledore, watching the first years with that characteristic twinkle. The sorting began alphabetically. Abbott, Hannah, became a Hufflepuff. Bones, Susan, also went to Hufflepuff. Granger, Hermione took longer. The Hat deliberated for nearly 4 minutes before shouting, Gryffindor. Hermione looked thrilled and slightly relieved as she went to the Gryffindor table. Longbottom Neville was another long sorting. The Hat seemed uncertain, but eventually called Griffifr. Malfoy, Draco hadn't even sat down before the Hat yelled Slytherin, then Potter, Harry. The Great Hall went dead silent. Every eye turned to Harry as he walked to the stool. Whispers erupted. Harry Potter? The boy who lived. I heard he was raised by Professor McGonagall. Is it true he can already do wandless magic? Harry sat on the stool and Professor Flitwick placed the sorting hat on his head. Well, 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 a voice said in his mind. Harry Potter. I've been waiting for you. Minerva McGonagall's son, though not by blood, by choice, which is more powerful. Let me see what we have here. The Hat rifled through his thoughts, his memories, his values. Interesting. Very interesting. Courage, yes. Your mother's influence, both Lily and Minerva. Loyalty, you die for those you love. But also a sharp mind, a thirst for knowledge that Ravenclaw would nurture beautifully. And cunning. Oh yes, you're strategic. Slytherin could make you great. Where do I belong? Harry thought. That's the question, isn't it? You could excel anywhere. But where will you grow most? Where will you be challenged? The Hat seemed to consider. You've spent your life surrounded by Gryffindors. Your guardian, your godfather Sirius, most of the adults who shaped you, all Gryffindors. You know that house inside and out. It would be comfortable. I don't need comfortable, Harry thought. I need to learn. Ah, now that's Ravenclaw thinking. You want knowledge, wisdom, the chance to develop your brilliant mind, free from expectations of courage and heroics. Yes, I see it clearly now. Better be Ravenclaw. The Ravenclaw table erupted in cheers. Harry removed the hat, caught Minerva's eye at the staff table. She was smiling, actually smiling, with obvious pride, and walked to the blue and bronze table. "We got Potter," a Ravenclaw prefect said excitedly. "Harry Potter's a Ravenclaw." Harry sat down between two older students who immediately began asking questions about his scar, his childhood, his fame. He answered politely but minimally, already falling into the pattern Minerva had taught him for handling unwanted attention. He watched the rest of the sorting with interest. Ron Weasley went to Gryffindor, looking relieved and happy. Several other students were sorted into various houses. When the last student, Zabini Blaise, became a Slytherin, Dumbledore stood for his start-of-term speech. "Welcome to another year at Hogwarts," Dumbledore said cheerfully. "Before we begin our feast, I have a few notices. The Forbidden Forest is, as always, forbidden. Our caretaker, Mr. Filch, has asked me to remind you that magic in the corridors is prohibited. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to anyone who doesn't wish to die a very painful death." Several students laughed nervously. Harry didn't laugh. He'd learned to take Dumbledore seriously, even when the headmaster was being whimsical. After the feast, Minerva caught Harry's eye and gave him the slightest nod, a private acknowledgement that she was pleased with his sorting and proud of how he'd handled the public attention. The Ravenclaw prefects led the first years to Ravenclaw Tower, which required solving a riddle to enter. "What has roots that nobody sees, is taller than trees? Up, up it goes, and yet never grows?" the bronze eagle knocker asked. Harry thought. "A mountain?" "Correct." The door swung open. Inside, the Ravenclaw common room was beautiful. Circular, with bookshelves lining the walls, comfortable armchairs, and tall windows offering views of the grounds. The ceiling was domed and painted with stars. "This is our common room," the prefect explained. "Boys' dormitories are on the left, girls on the right. You'll find your belongings already in your rooms. Breakfast is at 7:30. Don't be late. Professor McGonagall takes punctuality seriously." Harry found his dormitory and his 4 roommates, Terry Boot, Michael Corner, Anthony Goldstein, and Stephen Cornfoot. They were all looking at him with varying degrees of curiosity. "So," Terry Boot said, "you're Harry Potter." "The Harry Potter." "Just Harry," Harry said tiredly. "Please." "Fair enough. But mate, you're famous, and you were raised by Professor McGonagall." "That's mental. What's she like outside of class?" Harry considered his answer carefully. "Strict. Fair. Very organized. She expects excellence, but she also teaches you how to achieve it, and she cares about her students, even if she doesn't show it the way other people might." "Sounds terrifying," Michael Corner said. "She can be," Harry admitted, "but mostly she's just dedicated. To magic, to teaching, to making sure her students succeed." They talked for another hour before exhaustion claimed them. Harry fell asleep in his 4-poster bed, surrounded by strangers who would become friends, in a house he'd chosen for himself rather than inherited. It felt right. The next morning, Harry's first class was Transfiguration, with Professor McGonagall. He arrived early, habit from living with her, and found the classroom empty except for a tabby cat sitting on the desk. Harry recognized the cat immediately, having seen Minerva transform countless times. "Good morning, Professor," he said to the cat. The cat transformed mid-leap, becoming Minerva McGonagall standing beside her desk. "Mr. Potter," she said formally. "You're early, force of habit." "A good habit. Sit anywhere you like. The other students will arrive shortly." Harry chose a seat in the second row, not front, too obvious, but not back, too disengaged. Other Ravenclaws filtered in, followed by Gryffindors. Ron and Hermione arrived together, both looking relieved to be on time. When everyone was seated, Minerva transformed back into a cat, then into herself again. Several students gasped. "Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts," she said. "Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned." She turned the desk into a pig and back again, demonstrating the level of skill they were working toward. Then she distributed matches. "Your task is to turn these matches into needles. The wand movement is thus." She demonstrated the precise movement Harry had practiced thousands of times with a stick, and the incantation is Transformo Acus. Begin. Around the room, students waved their wands with varying degrees of success. Most matches remained stubbornly match-like. A few became slightly shinier. One turned into something that might have been a very fat, very short needle. Harry performed the spell on his first attempt. The match became a perfect silver needle, gleaming in the light. "Excellent work, Mr. Potter," Minerva said, examining the needle. 10 points to Ravenclaw, though I expect nothing less given your extensive theoretical preparation. Several students looked at Harry with surprise and envy. Hermione's hand shot up. "Professor, how did he do that so quickly?" "Practice, Miss Granger. Mr. Potter has been studying transfiguration theory for years. He understood the underlying principles before attempting the spell. That's the difference between rote memorization and genuine comprehension." At lunch, Ron found Harry at the Ravenclaw table. "Mate, that was brilliant in transfiguration. McGonagall barely praised anyone else, but you got it perfect first try." "I've had a lot of practice," Harry said modestly. "Because she's your guardian." "That's not fair, is it? You've got a massive advantage." Harry bristled slightly. "I've worked hard for years. It's not about fairness. It's about preparation. You could do the same if you studied the theory properly." "Easy for you to say. You live with a professor." "I live with someone who demands excellence," Harry corrected. "That's not always easy, Ron. She expects me to be better than everyone else because I've had opportunities others haven't. That's not an advantage, it's pressure." Ron seemed to think about this. "Yeah, I guess. Still, must be nice to know you'll never fail transfiguration. I could absolutely fail if I got lazy or careless. Professor McGonagall wouldn't hesitate to give me a troll mark if I deserved it. She might actually be harder on me than other students to avoid showing favoritism." Hermione joined them, sitting down, uninvited. "Professor McGonagall was extremely strict with both of you today, but praised other students when they made progress. She's being fair, not playing favorites." "Thanks, Hermione," Harry said. Over the next few weeks, Harry settled into Hogwarts life. He excelled in transfiguration, unsurprisingly. Charms, Flitwick was delighted to have such a prepared student, and history of magic, boring, but Harry's reading habits meant he already knew most of the content. He struggled slightly in potions, not with the theory, but with Snape's obvious dislike. "Potter," Snape said during their second lesson, examining Harry's perfectly brewed cure for boils. "Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry knew the answer. Minerva had made him study ahead. "The draught of living death, sir. An extremely powerful sleeping potion." "Where would you look if I asked you to find me a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat, sir. It's an antidote to most poisons." "What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They're the same plant, sir, also known as aconite." Snape's expression darkened. "Well, it seems living with Professor McGonagall has given you advantages other students lack. 10 points from Ravenclaw for showing off." "Professor, he was just answering your questions," Hermione protested. "Did I ask you, Miss Granger?" "No." "Detention, both of you, for speaking out of turn." After class, Harry went directly to Minerva's office. "Professor Snape gave me detention for answering questions correctly," Harry said without preamble. Minerva looked up from the essays she was grading. "Sit down, Harry. Tell me exactly what happened." Harry explained the interaction. Minerva's lips thinned. "Professor Snape is struggling with your presence," she said finally. "He knew your mother well, cared for her deeply. Seeing Lily's eyes in James's face is painful for him. That doesn't excuse unfair treatment, but it explains it. So what do I do?" "You serve the detention without complaint. You continue to excel in potions because you're capable of it. And you remember that Snape's issues with you are about his past, not your present. Don't let his bitterness poison your own attitude." "That seems unfair." "It is unfair. Life often is. But Harry, you're strong enough to handle unfair treatment without letting it diminish you. That's part of what I've been teaching you all these years." Harry served the detention, scrubbing cauldrons without magic, while Snape worked in silence. But he didn't complain, didn't argue, and continued to produce excellent potions work, despite the hostile atmosphere. By Halloween, Harry had firmly established himself at Hogwarts. He was known as the brilliant but slightly reserved Ravenclaw, the boy who'd been raised by Professor McGonagall, the student who always had perfect homework and never broke rules. He'd also become genuine friends with Hermione, who appreciated his academic dedication, and Ron, who'd gotten over his initial jealousy and now valued Harry's loyalty and dry humor. When the troll incident occurred on Halloween, Harry's response was markedly different from canon. He was in the Great Hall when Quirrell burst in screaming about the troll in the dungeons. Unlike canon Harry, who immediately thought of Hermione and rushed off to save her, McGonagall raised Harry's first thought was tactical assessment. "The Slytherin dormitories are in the dungeons," he said urgently to the nearest prefect. "If there's a troll down there, those students are in danger. Someone needs to evacuate them upward." The prefect stared at him for a second, then ran to Professor McGonagall with Harry's observation. Minerva's eyes widened. "You're absolutely right. All prefects, organize evacuation of the lower levels. Students move to upper floors immediately." The organized evacuation meant no students were harmed by the troll, which was subdued by the professors before it could cause damage. Later, Dumbledore publicly thanked Harry for his tactical awareness and concern for his fellow students, awarding Ravenclaw 20 points. "Well done," Minerva told him privately that evening when Harry visited her office for their weekly check-in. "You assessed the situation and alerted the appropriate authorities rather than trying to handle it yourself. That's exactly what I've been training you to do." "It seemed obvious," Harry said. "A troll in the dungeons means Slytherin students are at risk. Why would I run toward danger when I could alert people actually capable of handling it? Many students, especially first years, would have panicked or tried to be heroes. You did neither. I'm proud of you." Harry glowed under her praise. As the term continued, Harry noticed something odd. Professor Quirrell seemed nervous around him specifically. During Defense Against the Dark Arts classes, Quirrell stuttered more when calling on Harry, avoided making eye contact, and once actually flinched when Harry walked too close. "Professor Quirrell is acting strange," Harry mentioned to Hermione one day. "He's always acting strange," Hermione replied. "He stutters constantly and jumps at his own shadow." "No, I mean specifically around me, like he's afraid of me." "You're Harry Potter. Maybe he's starstruck, or maybe he's hiding something." Hermione's eyes lit up with the thrill of a mystery. "You think so? What would a Hogwarts professor be hiding?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." They investigated carefully, using Hermione's research skills and Harry's knowledge of Hogwarts secrets, gained from years of exploring with Minerva's permission. They discovered that something was being guarded on the 3rd floor, something protected by a 3-headed dog and various enchantments. "We should tell Professor McGonagall," Harry said immediately. "What if we're wrong?" Hermione asked. "What if there's nothing suspicious? Then we look foolish. But if we're right, and someone's trying to steal whatever's being protected, we've prevented a theft." The cost-benefit analysis favors telling her. They went to Minerva's office that evening. Harry explained their observations and suspicions. Minerva listened carefully, her expression growing more serious. "You believe Professor Quirrell is attempting to steal the Philosopher's Stone?" "The what?" Harry asked. "Never mind. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll investigate. Both of you, stay away from the 3rd floor. If there is a threat, it's not something first years should handle." "Yes, Professor," they chorused. Minerva went directly to Dumbledore with the students' concerns. Dumbledore investigated and discovered that yes, Quirrell was indeed attempting to steal the stone. But more than that, Quirrell was serving as a host for a fragment of Voldemort's soul. The situation was resolved by the professors before it could escalate. Quirrell was captured. The piece of Voldemort's soul was contained, though not destroyed, and the stone was relocated to a more secure location. Harry and Hermione received 50 points each for identifying a threat to Hogwarts and properly reporting it to authorities. "You did exactly right," Minerva told Harry privately. "You noticed something wrong, you investigated carefully, and you reported your findings rather than attempting to handle it yourself. That's mature thinking, Harry. I'm very proud." What was Quirrell trying to steal? The Philosopher's Stone, an alchemical artifact that produces the elixir of life. Voldemort wanted it to restore himself to power. Harry's blood ran cold. Voldemort? But he's gone. His body is gone. His spirit endures. He's weak, diminished, but not destroyed. Someday, Harry, he may return. And when he does, she paused, clearly choosing her words carefully. You'll need to be ready. Because of the prophecy, Minerva blinked. What do you know about the prophecy? Dumbledore mentioned it once, said there was a prophecy about me and Voldemort. That's why Voldemort came after my parents, isn't it? The prophecy suggested you would be the one to defeat him. But Harry, that's years away. For now, focus on being 11. Learn, grow, make friends. Leave Voldemort to the adults. First year ended with Ravenclaw winning the House Cup, partly due to Harry's and Hermione's point contributions, partly due to Ravenclaw's overall academic excellence. On the train home, Ron asked Harry what he'd do all summer. Study, Harry said. Professor McGonagall already gave me a reading list for next year. Plus, I'll be helping around Hogwarts. She wants me to learn advanced transfiguration theory. You're mental, Ron said affectionately, but brilliant. See you next year? Absolutely. Second and third years followed similar patterns. In second year, when the Chamber of Secrets opened and students started being petrified, Harry again approached Minerva with his concerns rather than investigating alone. The attacks seemed to target Muggle-borns, Harry explained. Hermione's worried she'll be next. And I heard a voice. In the walls. A voice no one else could hear, speaking about killing. Minerva's expression grew grave. What kind of voice? Hissing. Like a snake, but I understood it. Is that normal? No, Harry. That's Parseltongue. The ability to speak to serpents. It's extraordinarily rare and associated with Salazar Slytherin. But I'm not related to Slytherin. No. But Voldemort is. And when he tried to kill you, some of his powers may have transferred. We'll need to research this carefully. When Hermione was petrified, Harry was devastated. But he didn't rush off to the chamber alone. Instead, he worked with Minerva and Dumbledore to solve the mystery. They discovered that Ginny Weasley had been possessed by Tom Riddle's diary, a Horcrux, though Dumbledore didn't explain that term to Harry yet. When Ginny was taken into the chamber, Harry insisted on going after her. She's my friend's sister, Harry said. And I can speak Parseltongue. I can open the entrance. Let me help. Minerva wanted to refuse. But Dumbledore pointed out that Harry was the only one who could actually access the chamber without Riddle's cooperation. I'll go with him, Minerva said firmly. Together they descended into the chamber. Harry spoke Parseltongue to open the entrance, and they found Ginny dying. Tom Riddle's memory becoming corporeal, and the basilisk emerging from the statue. Don't look directly at it, Minerva shouted. Conjuring mirrors. Indirect sight only. The battle was terrifying. Minerva dueled Riddle's memory while Harry faced the basilisk. Fawkes arrived with the sorting hat, which gave Harry Gryffindor's sword. Harry killed the basilisk by driving the sword through its mouth into its brain, though he was poisoned by a fang in the process. Fawkes healed him with phoenix tears. Harry destroyed the diary by stabbing it with the basilisk fang, eliminating Riddle's memory. You fought a 60-foot basilisk, Minerva said afterward, her voice shaking. Harry, you could have died, but I didn't. And Ginny's alive. We saved her. We did. But Harry, don't ever scare me like that again. I'll try not to, but Minerva, he used her first name, which he rarely did. I'm the one who has to face these things. The prophecy, remember? I'm the one who will have to fight Voldemort eventually. I need to learn how. Minerva pulled him into a tight hug, something she almost never did. I know. But you're 12. You shouldn't have to fight dark wizards and basilisks. You should be playing Quidditch and studying for exams and being a child. I'm doing all those things, but I'm also preparing for what's coming. Because we both know it's coming. Third year brought Sirius Black's supposed escape from Azkaban. Except in this timeline, Sirius had never been imprisoned. Instead, the year brought Remus Lupin as defense against the dark arts professor, which delighted Harry. Uncle Remus is teaching, Harry wrote to Minerva. They corresponded regularly despite living in the same castle. It maintained their separate student-guardian and professor-student relationships. Lupin was an excellent teacher, focusing on practical defense. He taught Harry the Patronus charm privately. After Dementors affected Harry particularly strongly during a Quidditch match, you have more trauma than most students, Lupin explained gently. The Dementors force you to relive your parents' deaths. Even though you were too young to remember them consciously, the emotions are still there. The Patronus charm requires you to focus on your happiest memory to drive them away. Harry's Patronus took the form of a stag, his father's animagus form. Minerva, when he showed her, had tears in her eyes. James would be so proud, she said softly. A corporeal Patronus at 13. That's extraordinary, Harry. Third year also brought Hermione's time turner, which Harry found fascinating from a theoretical standpoint. Time magic is incredibly dangerous, Minerva warned when Harry asked about it. Hermione is using it for academic purposes under strict supervision. It's not a toy, Harry. I know. But the theoretical implications are fascinating. If you can go back in time, couldn't you prevent bad things from happening? You'd think so. But time magic is paradoxical. Attempting to change major events often causes the very events you're trying to prevent. That's why time turners are heavily regulated. The year ended peacefully, with Harry achieving top marks in most subjects. Snape still gave him mediocre grades in potions, despite excellent practical work, but Harry had stopped letting it bother him. He spent the summer before fourth year training intensively with Minerva, preparing for what they both sensed was coming. An escalation of the threat Voldemort posed. "You're ready," Minerva said one evening, after they'd finished a particularly grueling practice session in advanced transfiguration. "You're more prepared than most fifth years, Harry, if Voldemort does return." "When he returns," Harry corrected quietly. "When he returns," Minerva acknowledged, "you'll be able to defend yourself. That's all I can give you. The skills, the knowledge, the preparation, the rest, the choices, the battles, the ultimate confrontation, those are yours. I know. And Minerva, thank you for everything. For taking me in, for training me, for being the parent I needed even when you didn't know how. I'm still learning," Minerva said. "Every day I'm still learning how to be your mother. But Harry, you make it easy. You're everything I could have hoped for. Brilliant, kind, brave when necessary, but strategic by preference. Your parents would be so proud. I know I am. Fourth year would test everything they'd built, but for now, on this summer evening, they were just Minerva and Harry, guardian and child, professor and student, two people bound by choice and love rather than blood. And that was enough. Fourth year, the Tri-Wizard Tournament. The announcement of the Tri-Wizard Tournament came during the start of term feast, delivered by Dumbledore with characteristic flair. "Eternal glory!" Dumbledore proclaimed. "That is what awaits the student who wins the Tri-Wizard Tournament. But be warned, this tournament is not for the faint of heart. Only students 17 or older may enter." Harry, sitting at the Ravenclaw table, felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. Relief that he wouldn't be eligible. He had enough complications in his life without adding a deadly tournament. Curiosity about what the tournament would actually involve. Beside him, Terry Boot was practically vibrating with excitement. "This is brilliant! Representatives from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang, international magical cooperation. Harry, your mum must be so involved in planning this." "She's deputy headmistress," Harry said. "I'm sure she's been part of the organization. Though she hasn't mentioned it to me, we keep school business and personal life separate as much as possible. Still, living with a professor during the Tri-Wizard Tournament, you'll get inside information." "I won't," Harry said firmly. "That would be inappropriate, and she'd never tell me anyway. She's very strict about fairness." When the Beauxbatons carriage and Durmstrang ship arrived, Harry watched with genuine fascination. The international students were impressive, older, more confident, clearly skilled. The Beauxbatons contingent included Fleur de la Cour, a girl so beautiful that half the Great Hall seemed to lose the ability to think clearly. Harry, raised by Minerva to value substance over appearance, was less affected, but still noticed her unusual quality. "Part Vila," Hermione whispered knowledgeably. "That's why everyone's staring. The Vila allure affects most people." "Not you?" Harry asked. "I'm somewhat resistant, and frankly, beauty doesn't impress me as much as intelligence. Though she might be brilliant too, we shouldn't assume." The Durmstrang students arrived with Victor Krum, the famous seeker. Ron was starstruck. Harry was more interested in observing how the international students carried themselves. There was a subtle arrogance to many of them, a certainty in their magical abilities that spoke to different training than Hogwarts provided. When the Goblet of Fire was revealed and students began entering their names, Harry stayed well away. He had no interest in competing, no desire for glory or attention beyond what his fame already forced on him. He did, however, notice that Barty Crouch seemed unusually tense during the explanation of the tournament rules. And Igor Karkaroff kept staring at Harry with an expression Harry couldn't quite read. Recognition? Fear? Calculation? "Something's off about this tournament," Harry mentioned to Hermione one evening in the library. "What do you mean?" "I don't know exactly, just a feeling. The security seems excessive even for a dangerous competition." And some of the adults, Crouch, Karkaroff, they seem more nervous than the situation warrants. You're probably just being paranoid, which, given your history with dark wizards trying to kill you, is understandable but not necessarily accurate. Halloween brought the selection of champions. Harry sat at the Ravenclaw table, watching with mild interest as the goblet produced 3 names: Victor Crumb for Durmstrang, Fleur Delacour for Beauxbatons, and Cedric Diggory for Hogwarts. The Great Hall erupted in celebration. Cedric was popular, talented, a worthy champion. The feast was already resuming when the goblet turned red again. A 4th piece of parchment shot out. Dumbledore caught it, read it, and his face went absolutely white. "Harry Potter?" he said, his voice barely audible. The Great Hall fell silent. Every eye turned to Harry, who was frozen in shock. "Harry Potter!" Dumbledore called again, louder this time. Harry stood on numb legs and walked to the front of the hall. The whispers followed him like a physical force. He entered. "But he's 14. Cheetah! Trying to steal more glory! How did he get past the age line?" Minerva was on her feet, her face pale with fury and fear. "Headmaster, this is impossible. Harry would never—" "Nevertheless, Professor McGonagall, his name came out of the goblet. We must investigate how this occurred." They were taken to a side chamber. Harry, the other champions, the judges, and several professors including Minerva. The argument that followed was intense. "I didn't enter," Harry said for the 5th time. "I don't want to compete. I'm 14. I'm not even eligible." "Someone must have entered your name," Dumbledore said quietly. "Someone who wants you in this tournament. The question is why?" "Because they want to hurt him," Minerva said, her voice sharp with protective fury. "This tournament is designed to test 17-year-olds. Harry is a 4th-year student. Forcing him to compete is attempted murder. Nevertheless," Barty Crouch said stiffly, "the Goblet of Fire constitutes a binding magical contract. Mr. Potter must compete or forfeit his magic." "That's unacceptable," Minerva's voice could have cut glass. "He didn't enter. Why should he be punished for someone else's manipulation?" "Those are the rules," Crouch insisted. Harry listened to them argue, and felt something cold settle in his chest. Someone had put his name in the goblet. Someone wanted him in this tournament. And the only person who'd want that, the only one who'd benefit from Harry being in mortal danger, was Voldemort. "I'll compete," Harry said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. "Harry, no," Minerva began. "I don't have a choice," Harry interrupted. "It's compete or lose my magic, and whoever put my name in did it for a reason. They want me vulnerable, distracted, possibly dead. The best way to counter that is to compete, survive, and figure out who's behind this. That's remarkably strategic thinking for someone who's just been forced into a deadly tournament," Mad-Eye Moody growled. The new defense professor had been watching Harry with his magical eye spinning. "The boy's right. Someone's playing a game. Best way to win is to play better." Minerva looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find fault with Harry's logic. "Then we prepare you," she said finally. "Properly prepare you. Every spare moment, every resource available, you'll be ready for these tasks." That night, Harry sat in Minerva's office while she paced furiously. "Someone is trying to kill you," she said bluntly. "Again, this is the 4th year in a row that someone has targeted you at Hogwarts. I know. You're 14 years old. You should be worried about exams and Quidditch, not deadly tournaments and assassination attempts." "I know," Harry repeated. "But Minerva, this is my life. It's been my life since Voldemort marked me. We can be angry about it, or we can prepare for it. I'd rather prepare." Minerva stopped pacing and looked at him. "When did you become so calm about people trying to kill you?" "About 10 years ago, when you explained that Voldemort would probably come back someday and I'd have to fight him. This is just earlier than expected. You're too young to be this pragmatic about your own mortality." "Then you raised me wrong," Harry said with a slight smile. Despite herself, Minerva almost smiled back. Cheeky child. "Very well. If you must compete, we'll make sure you're the most prepared 14-year-old in tournament history. Tell me, what do you know about dragons?" The preparation was intense. Minerva recruited Flitwick for advanced charms work, Moody for defensive tactics, and even reluctantly asked Snape for help with potions that might prove useful. "Potter needs a fire resistance potion," Minerva told Snape during a staff meeting, "and a healing draft stronger than what's typically available. I know you're not fond of him, but..." He's competing in a tournament designed for students 3 years his senior, Snape interrupted. I'm not fond of the boy, but I'm not going to let him die from inadequate preparation. I'll brew what he needs. Harry was surprised when Snape delivered the potions personally to Minerva's office, where Harry was studying. This is a fire resistance potion, Snape said curtly, setting down several vials. Apply it to exposed skin before the first task. It won't make you immune, but it will prevent instant death from dragon fire. This is blood replenishing potion. If you're injured badly, drink it. This is— Why are you helping me? Harry interrupted. Snape's expression was unreadable. Because your mother, Professor McGonagall, asked me to. And because whatever I think of you personally, I don't wish to see a 14-year-old murdered for sport. Thank you, sir. Snape nodded stiffly and left. He does care, Minerva said quietly. In his way. Beneath the hostility and the grudges, Severus Snape is a good man who was treated badly by life. He takes it out on students who remind him of his pain, but he's not cruel, not truly. The other students' reactions to Harry's selection were mixed. Hermione and Ron believed he hadn't entered and supported him completely. Much of Ravenclaw House was confused and skeptical. The other houses, especially Hufflepuff, who felt Cedric's moment of glory had been stolen, were openly hostile. Potter Stink's badges appeared within days, created by Draco Malfoy and distributed to half the school. Harry ignored them with practiced ease. He'd been dealing with unwanted attention his entire life. A few badges weren't going to shake him. What did shake him was Rita Skeeter's interview, which painted him as a tragic orphan seeking glory to cope with his parents' deaths. Heartbreaking, the boy who lived, raised by stern Professor McGonagall, seeks love through competition. The article was full of half-truths and emotional manipulation. It claimed Harry was desperate for attention, that Minerva was cold and distant, that Harry had entered the tournament to prove himself worthy of his fame. This is libel, Minerva said, reading the article with visible fury. Every word is designed to make you seem pathetic and me seem neglectful. I should sue the prophet. It won't help, Harry said tiredly. It'll just draw more attention. Better to ignore it and prove her wrong through actions. When did you become the mature one in this relationship? I learned from the best. The first task was announced. Dragons. Retrieve a golden egg from a nesting mother dragon. Minerva's face went white when she heard, dragons. They're making 14-year-olds face dragons. I can do this, Harry said with more confidence than he felt. I just need the right strategy. They developed a plan based on Harry's strengths. He was an excellent flyer, Quidditch seeker, trained by Minerva and coached by Sirius. He was good at summoning charms, 4 years of practice ahead of most students. The strategy was simple. Summon his firebolt, outfly the dragon, grab the egg. It's risky, Minerva said. If the summoning charm fails, if the dragon is faster than you think, if I spend time worrying about every possible failure, I'll never act, Harry interrupted. The plan is sound. I'll execute it properly. Trust me. I do trust you. Minerva's voice cracked slightly. I can't lose you, Harry. Do you understand? I cannot lose you. Harry hugged her, something they rarely did even in private. You won't. I promise. The day of the first task arrived. Harry drew the Hungarian horntail, the most dangerous dragon, naturally. He prepared carefully, applied Snape's fire resistance potion, reviewed his strategy mentally. When his turn came, he entered the arena to face a 40-foot dragon protecting a golden egg. The crowd roared. Minerva sat in the judges' section, her hands clenched, white-knuckled in her lap. Harry raised his wand. Accio Firebolt! The broomstick came zooming from the castle. Harry mounted it and shot into the air. What followed was a spectacular aerial display. Harry flew circles around the horntail, using his seeker skills to dodge jets of flame. The dragon pursued him into the air, abandoning the eggs. Harry seized the opportunity, dove toward the nest, grabbed the golden egg, and shot back into the air before the horntail could react. The crowd exploded. Even those who'd hated Harry for entering had to admit it was brilliant flying. The judges awarded him high marks. Minerva couldn't give him points, conflict of interest, but the other judges gave him 9s and 10s. Afterward, Minerva found him in the first aid tent where Madame Pomfrey was treating minor burns. That was the most terrifying 10 minutes of my life, Minerva said, watching you fly circles around a dragon that could have incinerated you at any moment. But it didn't. The strategy worked. This time. Harry, please promise me you'll be careful with the remaining tasks. No unnecessary risks. I promise to be as careful as the task allows. That's the best I can offer. The golden egg, when opened, emitted a horrible wailing sound. Harry spent weeks trying to decode it before Cedric Diggory, surprisingly, gave him a hint. Try the prefect's bathroom, Cedric said quietly one evening. Open it underwater. Harry was suspicious of the help, but took the advice. Underwater, the egg's wail became a song about the lake, merpeople, and retrieving the thing you'll miss most within an hour. The second task required retrieving someone from the lake. Harry researched obsessively, finding references to gillyweed, a plant that would give him gills and webbed hands for an hour. Neville provided the gillyweed. He'd been studying herbology extensively. Harry consumed it before the task, transformed partially into a fish-like creature, and dove into the lake. What he found beneath the water shocked him. 4 people suspended in magical sleep. Ron, representing Crum's closest friendship at Hogwarts. Hermione, representing Harry's friendship. Gabrielle Delacour, Fleur's sister. And Cho Chang. But Harry's person, the thing he'd miss most, wasn't there. Panic seized him. Had the organizers made a mistake? Was Minerva in danger? Then he saw her, not suspended underwater, but standing on the shore watching with the other judges. She was fine. She was safe. But who was he supposed to rescue? An elderly merperson approached. Your treasure, Harry Potter. We chose differently for you. She gestured to another suspended figure Harry hadn't noticed, Sirius Black. Of course, his godfather. The person who'd been there throughout his childhood alongside Minerva. The person who represented his connection to his parents. Harry freed Sirius first, then noticed Fleur hadn't appeared to rescue Gabrielle. He freed her too, earning extra points for moral fiber but losing points for being slower than other champions. When Sirius woke on shore, coughing up lake water, he grinned at Harry. Well, that was unpleasant. But apparently, I'm what you'd miss most. I'm touched, pup. Your family, Harry said simply. Minerva approached, wrapping a warm blanket around Harry. Well done. Though rescuing 2 people was risky, you nearly ran out of time. I wasn't going to leave Gabrielle there. Fleur was injured, couldn't reach her. Someone had to help. Always the hero, Minerva said, but her tone was fond. The Yule Ball proved complicated. Harry was required to have a date as a champion, but had no romantic interest in anyone. Eventually he asked Cho Chang, who was already dating Cedric, to go as friends, which she politely declined. He ended up asking Hermione, who accepted gratefully since Ron had failed to ask her in time. This is ridiculous, Harry muttered as Minerva helped him with formal robes the night of the ball. I'm 14. I shouldn't have to worry about dates and dancing. Consider it practice for future social obligations, Minerva said, adjusting his collar. As Harry Potter, you'll attend many formal events. Better to learn proper etiquette now. You're enjoying this. Perhaps slightly. You look very handsome, Harry. Your father would be proud. James loved formal occasions, though he'd never have admitted it. The ball itself was tolerable. Harry danced with Hermione, both of them stiff and awkward but managing, made polite conversation with the other champions, and generally fulfilled his obligations without embarrassing himself. What he noticed, however, was Mad-Eye Moody watching him constantly throughout the evening. The professor's magical eye never stopped tracking Harry, even when Moody was engaged in conversation with others. Professor Moody is acting strange, Harry mentioned to Minerva during one of their preparation sessions. How so? He watches me. Constantly. And he's been very helpful with preparing for the tournament. Almost too helpful. Like he wants me to succeed for reasons beyond just being a good teacher. Alastor is paranoid by nature, Minerva said. Constant vigilance is his motto. But Harry, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The third task was a maze filled with obstacles and creatures. Retrieve the Triwizard Cup from the center. First one to touch it wins. Harry prepared extensively. Stunning spells, shield charms, cutting curses for plants, fire spells for creatures. Minerva drilled him until he could cast each spell perfectly under pressure. Remember, she said before he entered the maze. The cup isn't worth your life. If you encounter something you can't handle, send up red sparks. The professors will extract you. Surviving is more important than winning. I'll be careful, Harry promised. He entered the maze at the sound of the cannon. Almost immediately, things went wrong. The paths shifted. Creatures emerged. Blast-ended Scroots, Acromanculus, a boggart that transformed into Voldemort. Harry banished it with ridiculous, refusing to let fear paralyze him. He encountered Victor Crumb, who was acting strangely. Under the Imperious Curse, Harry realized. He stunned Crumb and sent up red sparks to alert the professors. Finally, he saw the cup ahead. Cedric Diggory was running toward it from another path. They reached it simultaneously. "Go ahead," Cedric said. "You saved my life with the dragon hint. Take it. We could share it," Harry suggested. "Hogwarts victory together." Cedric considered, then nodded. Together, then. They grabbed the cup simultaneously and were jerked into a portkey, landing hard in a graveyard miles from Hogwarts. Harry recognized it instantly from descriptions he'd read. Little Hangleton, the Riddle family graveyard, where Voldemort's father was buried. "Trap!" Harry gasped, scrambling to his feet. "Cedric, it's a trap!" A figure emerged from the shadows. Peter Pettigrew, carrying a grotesque bundle. "The spare can die," a high, cold voice said from the bundle. "Kill him!" "Avada Kedavra!" Pettigrew screamed. Cedric Diggory collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. Horror and rage flooded through Harry. He raised his wand, but Pettigrew was faster. "Incarcerus!" Ropes bound Harry to Tom Riddle's headstone. He struggled, but the bonds were magical, unbreakable. What followed was a nightmare. Pettigrew performed a ritual. Bone of the father, taken from Riddle's grave. Flesh of the servant, Pettigrew cut off his own hand. Blood of the enemy, Harry's blood taken by force from his arm. The potion in the cauldron turned blood red. A figure rose from it. Tall, skeletal, snake-like. Red eyes, noseless face. Voldemort had returned. Death Eaters apparated, drawn by the dark mark. They fell to their knees before their resurrected master. "Welcome, my friends," Voldemort said. 13 years it has been, but I have returned. And look, I've brought us a guest, Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Come to die. He released Harry from the bonds, forcing him into a duel. "Show me what Minerva McGonagall taught you," Voldemort hissed. "Show me if her training was sufficient." It wasn't. Harry was skilled for 14, brilliant even. But Voldemort was the most powerful dark wizard in a century. The duel was one-sided. "Cruciatus Curse," Harry screamed. Slicing hex. Harry bled. Blasting curse. Harry barely dodged. "Pathetic," Voldemort said. "The great Harry Potter. Raised by a transfiguration professor, trained from infancy, and still no match for me." But Harry had been trained for more than just dueling. He'd been trained to think, to survive, to use every advantage. "Expelliarmus," Harry shouted, not trying to hurt Voldemort but to disarm him. Their wands connected. Brothers, as Ollivander had said, phoenix feathercores from the same phoenix. Priori incantatum occurred. Golden light erupted between them. Ghostly echoes of Voldemort's victims emerged from his wand. An old man, Bertha Jorkins, Frank Bryce, Cedric Diggory, and then, impossibly, James Potter. Lily Potter, not real. Just echoes, memories trapped in the wand. But they spoke. Harry, James's shade, said, "You've grown so much. We're so proud. Hold the connection," Lily's shade urged. "We'll give you time. Run when the connection breaks. Get to the cup. Get back to Hogwarts." The shades of Voldemort's victims surrounded him, distracting him. Harry broke the connection and ran. He grabbed Cedric's body, wouldn't leave him here, and touched the cup. The portkey activated. He landed back in the maze entrance. The crowd was cheering, thinking he'd won. Then they saw Cedric's body, and the cheers turned to screams. Minerva reached him first. "Harry! What happened? Where did you— Is that— Voldemort?" Harry gasped. "He's back." The cup was a portkey. Graveyard. He killed Cedric. He's back. Dumbledore was there instantly, taking control. Get Harry to the hospital wing. Alert the ministry. Lock down the school. In the chaos that followed, Fudge denying Voldemort's return, Dumbledore insisting it was true, the Diggory family's grief, Rita Skeeter's vultures circling. Minerva stayed with Harry. "You survived," she said, holding his hand while Madame Pomfrey treated his injuries. "You faced Voldemort and survived again." Cedric didn't survive, Harry said, his voice hollow. He's dead because of me. Because we grabbed the cup together. I killed him. Voldemort killed him. Peter Pettigrew killed him. You tried to save him by bringing his body back. Harry, you're not responsible for murder committed by dark wizards. Doesn't feel that way. Minerva had no answer to that. She simply held his hand while he processed trauma no 14-year-old should have to endure. 5th year. The Umbridge conflict summer was difficult. Harry had nightmares about Cedric's death, about the graveyard, about Voldemort's return. Minerva consulted with Dumbledore about getting Harry professional help, but Harry refused. I'm fine, he insisted. I just need time to process it. You watched a classmate murdered, Harry. You were tortured. You're not fine, and pretending otherwise doesn't help. Talking about my feelings? That won't change what happened. Cedric's still dead. Voldemort's still back. The only thing I can do is prepare for what comes next. So they prepared. Minerva trained him in advanced defensive magic. Sirius visited regularly, teaching Harry about the First War against Voldemort, about Death Eater tactics, about survival in conflict. Even Snape contributed, teaching Harry occlumency to protect his mind from potential invasion. The occlumency lessons were brutal. Snape invaded Harry's mind repeatedly, forcing him to relive Cedric's death, his parents' murder, every traumatic moment. Clear your mind, Snape commanded. Emotion is weakness. The Dark Lord will exploit every fear, every memory. You must be empty, Harry tried. He failed repeatedly, but slowly, painfully, he learned to build mental walls, to compartmentalize trauma, to function despite psychological wounds. 5th year began under a cloud. The Ministry was denying Voldemort's return. The Daily Prophet was running smear campaigns against Dumbledore and Harry, calling them liars and attention seekers. And then Dolores Umbridge arrived. She was appointed by the Ministry as Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor, clearly sent to suppress any mention of Voldemort and control Hogwarts from within. Her first lesson made her intentions clear. You will be learning defensive theory only, Umbridge said in her sickly sweet voice. Wands away. There will be no need for practical magic. Hermione's hand shot up. But Professor, how can we defend ourselves without practicing spells? Who would you need to defend yourselves against, Miss Granger? You're perfectly safe. The Ministry has everything under control. Voldemort is back, Harry said flatly. I saw him. I dueled him. We need to learn practical defense. The classroom went silent. Mr. Conreal, Potter, Umbridge said, her smile never wavering. You will not tell lies in my classroom. There is no Dark Lord. You experienced a traumatic delusion brought on by stress. The Ministry has confirmed this. The Ministry is wrong. Detention, Mr. Potter. Tonight. My office. We'll discuss your tendency toward falsehood. The detention was torture. Umbridge gave Harry a blood quill, a dark artifact that carved words into flesh as you wrote. You will write, I must not tell lies, Umbridge said sweetly. Until the message sinks in, Harry wrote. The quill cut into his hand, drawing blood to form the words. The wound healed and cut again, over and over, until the message was permanently scarred into his skin. He said nothing, showed no pain. Minerva had taught him discipline, and he'd learned from Snape's occlumency lessons how to compartmentalize suffering. After 3 hours, Umbridge dismissed him. Harry went directly to Minerva's office. She was still awake, grading essays. Harry? It's past curfew. Then she saw his hand. What did she do to you? Blood quill. Made me write lines. It's a dark artifact, isn't it? Highly illegal, Minerva said, her voice trembling with fury. She healed the wounds carefully, though the scars remained faintly visible. This is torture, Harry. I'm reporting her to Dumbledore immediately. It won't help. She's protected by the Ministry. Fudge won't let her be removed. Then I'll remove her myself. You can't. You'd be fired. And I need you here. Harry met her eyes steadily. Minerva Umbridge is a symptom, not the disease. The Ministry is corrupt, scared, denying reality. Removing one person won't fix that. We need a different strategy. What strategy? We teach ourselves defense against the dark arts, practical magic, everything Umbridge won't teach us. We form a group. Students who want to actually learn to defend themselves against what's coming. Minerva considered this. You're proposing an unauthorized student group teaching defense magic. That's against about 15 school rules. Yes. Will you help us anyway? For a long moment, Minerva was silent. Then, I cannot officially endorse this. As deputy headmistress, I must maintain school rules. But Harry, if students were to, hypothetically, form such a group and meet in secret locations that a clever professor might mention in passing, I would turn a blind eye to their activities. Do you understand? Yes. Thank you. Be careful. Umbridge is more dangerous than she appears. She has ministry backing, and no compunction about using dark methods to maintain control. If she discovers your group, she'll crush it. And you. Dumbledore's army was formed within 2 weeks. Harry recruited carefully. Hermione, Ron, Neville, Luna Lovegood, Ginny Weasley, students from all houses who recognized that Voldemort's return meant they needed real skills. They met in the room of requirement. A secret chamber Minerva had mentioned accidentally during a conversation about Hogwarts' hidden spaces. Harry taught them everything he knew. Disarming charms, stunning spells, shield charms, Patronus charms. He taught them tactics, strategy, how to fight as a team rather than individuals. My guardian taught me that magic is only part of combat, Harry explained during one session. You need to think 3 moves ahead. Position yourself advantageously. Use your environment. Never fight fair if you can avoid it. That's very Slytherin, someone observed. That's very practical, Harry corrected. Houses don't matter when you're facing Death Eaters. Survival matters. Victory matters. Everything else is sentiment. The DA flourished. Students improved dramatically. Neville became particularly skilled at defensive magic, his confidence growing with each successful spell. But Umbridge was hunting them. She'd created an inquisitorial squad, students, mostly Slytherins, loyal to their pure-blood families, who spied for her and reported rule violations. In February, they were betrayed. Marietta Edgecombe, pressured by her mother who worked at the ministry, told Umbridge about the DA's meeting location. Umbridge raided the room of requirement with her squad and several ministry officials. Caught, Umbridge said with vicious satisfaction. An illegal student organization, teaching unauthorized magic, led by Harry Potter. This is grounds for expulsion. You can't expel students for studying, Hermione protested. I can expel them for defying ministry authority. All of you, come with me to the headmaster's office. The confrontation in Dumbledore's office was tense. Fudge had arrived personally, eager to catch Dumbledore supporting student rebellion. This organization was meeting behind my back, Dumbledore said calmly, teaching defense magic without authorization. That's concerning. It's treason, Fudge snapped. Potter's building an army against the ministry. Potter's building a study group, Minerva corrected sharply. She'd been summoned to the office and was standing protectively near Harry. Students have the right to form study groups. There's no law against practicing defensive magic. There is, when it's done in secret defiance of an appointed professor. Perhaps if the appointed professor was actually teaching defense, students wouldn't need alternatives. Minerva shot back. The argument escalated. Eventually, Dumbledore took responsibility for the DA, claiming he'd organized it himself. He fled the school rather than be arrested, and Umbridge became headmistress. The atmosphere at Hogwarts became oppressive. Umbridge imposed draconian rules. No gatherings of more than 3 students. No unauthorized magic. No questioning of ministry authority. Educational decrees papered the walls. She targeted Harry specifically, giving him detention after detention with the blood quill. His hand became permanently scarred with, "I must not tell lies." Minerva couldn't intervene directly without being dismissed, so she helped indirectly, providing healing salves that reduced scarring, teaching Harry pain management techniques, ensuring he had support even when she couldn't publicly defend him. "I'm sorry," she told him one evening when treating his latest wounds. "I should be protecting you better." "You're protecting me the only way you can," Harry said. "If you fight Umbridge directly, you'll be fired. Then I'd have no one here. This is the right strategy. I hate this strategy. So do I. But it's working. The DA is still meeting in secret. Umbridge didn't catch everyone, and those she did haven't betrayed the others. We're preparing, even if we have to do it underground." In June, Harry had a vision, Sirius being tortured in the Department of Mysteries by Voldemort. His first instinct was to rush to save his godfather, but Minerva's training held. "Verify first," she taught him. "Never trust a single source of information, especially in war. confirm before acting. Harry contacted Sirius via Flu Network using Umbridge's office fire while she was occupied elsewhere. Sirius appeared, safe and unharmed. Harry? What's wrong? Vision. Voldemort showed me you being tortured in the Department of Mysteries. But you're fine. It was bait. Clever boy. Yes, definitely bait. Voldemort wants you at the Department of Mysteries, probably after the prophecy about you too. Don't fall for it. What if the next vision is real? What if someone actually is in danger? Then you tell the Order, and we handle it. Harry, you're 15. Let the adults fight the war. But Harry couldn't let it go. He contacted Minerva instead, explaining about the vision and his concerns that Voldemort might use similar tactics with real victims next time. We need to protect the Department of Mysteries, Minerva said. I'll inform the Order. They'll post guards at the Prophecy Hall. Voldemort won't be able to access it without encountering resistance. The Order did exactly that. When Voldemort's forces attempted to raid the Department of Mysteries 2 weeks later, they were met by prepared Aurors and Order members. The battle was intense, but no prophecy was stolen, and no one on the side of light was killed. The Ministry could no longer deny Voldemort's return, not when Death Eaters were caught red-handed attempting to steal Ministry property. Fudge resigned. Umbridge was removed from Hogwarts in disgrace, and the wizarding world finally acknowledged what Harry had been saying for a year. The war had begun again. 5th year ended with Harry exhausted but vindicated. The DA had proven itself valuable. When younger students were attacked by Death Eaters during the Department of Mysteries battle, DA members had defended them successfully. You did well, Minerva told Harry on the train platform at year's end. This was your hardest year yet, and you not only survived, you led others to survive. I'm proud of you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when Umbridge was torturing me and the Ministry was calling me a liar, you believed me. Always, Minerva said. I will always believe you, Harry. You're my son. That doesn't change regardless of what the Ministry or the Prophet or anyone else says. Summer brought more training. The war was escalating. Death Eater attacks were occurring weekly. The Order of the Phoenix was mobilizing. And Harry Potter, raised by Minerva McGonagall to be strategic, disciplined, and brilliant, prepared for the battles ahead. Because he knew, they all knew, that the final confrontation with Voldemort was inevitable. The only question was whether Harry would be ready when it came. 6th year, the Horcrux revelation. The summer between 5th and 6th year was unlike any Harry had experienced. The wizarding world was at war, openly, undeniably, terrifyingly. Death Eater attacks occurred weekly. The Daily Prophet's front page was a constant stream of casualties, disappearances, and terror. Harry spent most of his time at Order headquarters, a rotating location due to security concerns, training with various Order members. Sirius taught him dueling. Kingsley Shacklebolt taught him tactical combat. Remus Lupin taught him about dark creatures and how to counter them. And Minerva continued his advanced transfiguration education, pushing him toward magic most 7th years never attempted. Human transfiguration, Minerva said one afternoon, demonstrating by turning her hand briefly into a bird's wing before returning it to normal. Extraordinarily difficult, extraordinarily dangerous. If done incorrectly, you could permanently damage yourself. But in combat, the ability to transform parts of your body, to grow armor, to change your appearance, to escape bonds, can mean the difference between life and death. Teach me, Harry said immediately. They practiced for hours. Harry managed minor transformations, hardening his skin temporarily, changing his eye color, growing his hair. Nothing dramatic, but progress. You're advancing faster than any student I've taught, Minerva said with pride. By the time you're 17, you might actually achieve full human transfiguration. Perhaps even animagus transformation? That takes years. It took me 3 years to become an animagus. You've already mastered the theoretical groundwork. With dedicated practice, you could do it in 2. In late August, Dumbledore summoned Harry to a meeting. They met in Grimmauld Place, in a warded room where they couldn't be overheard. Harry, Dumbledore began, his blue eyes grave behind half-moon spectacles. What I'm about to tell you is highly sensitive information. Only a few people know, and it's crucial this knowledge remains contained. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Tom Riddle Voldemort has made himself immortal through the darkest of magic. He's created Horcruxes. Horcruxes? Harry had heard the term, but didn't know the full meaning. Objects containing fragments of a soul, split through murder. As long as even one Horcrux remains intact, Voldemort cannot truly die. His body can be destroyed, but his soul endures, waiting to return. Horror crept through Harry. How many? I believe 7, including the fragment in his body. We've already destroyed 2. Tom Riddle's diary, which you eliminated in the Chamber of Secrets, and a ring I destroyed last summer. 5 remain. What are they? That's what we must discover. I have leads. Objects connected to the Hogwarts founders, items Voldemort valued. A locket, a cup, possibly Nagini his snake, and one more I haven't identified. Harry, destroying these Horcruxes is the only way to make Voldemort mortal enough to kill. This is our mission. Our mission? Yes. I need your help. You understand Voldemort in ways others don't. You've faced him, studied him, survived him. Together we'll hunt the Horcruxes. Harry felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. When do we start? This year. I'll provide private lessons, ostensibly about Voldemort's history, but actually about tracking Horcruxes. We'll investigate together. And Harry, tell Professor McGonagall. She deserves to know what you'll be facing. That evening, Harry explained everything to Minerva in her private cottage. She listened in silence, her face growing paler with each word. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Horcruxes, she said finally, her voice hollow. The darkest magic imaginable. Soul murder. And you're expected to hunt them. Yes. You're 16 years old. I know. You should be worrying about NEWs and Quidditch and dating, not hunting pieces of a Dark Lord's soul. I know, Harry repeated. But Minerva, this is my responsibility. The prophecy, neither can live while the other survives. To kill Voldemort permanently, we need to destroy the Horcruxes first. I'm the only one who can do this. Why you? Why not Dumbledore or the Order or... Because Voldemort and I are connected. Because I understand him. Because the prophecy marks me as the one who has to end this. Harry reached for her hand. I'm ready. You've prepared me for this my entire life. Everything you taught me, discipline, strategic thinking, advanced magic, it's all led to this moment. Minerva's eyes were wet with tears she refused to let fall. I raised you to survive, not to sacrifice yourself. I'm not planning to die. I'm planning to win. There's a difference. 6th year began under heightened security. Aurors patrolled Hogsmeade. The castle's wards were strengthened. Students weren't allowed to leave the grounds without explicit permission. Harry's private lessons with Dumbledore began immediately. They used the Pensivie to explore memories of Tom Riddle, his childhood in the orphanage, his years at Hogwarts, his transformation into Voldemort. Understanding your enemy is crucial, Dumbledore explained. Tom Riddle feared death above all else. He sought immortality through any means. That fear drove him to create Horcruxes, to abandon his humanity, to become the monster we now face. Harry watched young Tom Riddle manipulate and murder and recognized something disturbing. He understood Riddle's logic, not morally, never morally, but intellectually. He could follow the twisted reasoning that led to Horcrux creation. You see how he thinks, Dumbledore observed. That's your advantage. You can anticipate his choices because you understand his values, even as you reject them. In December, Dumbledore had a lead on a Horcrux. Slytherin's locket, hidden in a cave protected by dark magic. We'll retrieve it together, Dumbledore said. But Harry, this will be dangerous. The protections Voldemort created are designed to kill. I need you at full magical capacity. I'm ready. They traveled to the cave on a cold December night. The entrance required blood to open. Dumbledore cut his hand and painted the rocks. Inside was a vast underground lake with an island in the center. We must cross the lake, Dumbledore said. But disturbing the water will wake what sleeps beneath. They took a boat. The only way across. Harry could feel corpses beneath the water, Inferi waiting to attack. On the island was a basin filled with glowing green potion. At the bottom, visible through the liquid, the locket. The potion must be consumed to retrieve the Horcrux, Dumbledore said. It will cause terrible suffering, visions of worst fears, physical agony. I'll drink it. Your task is to ensure I continue drinking no matter what I say. There has to be another way. There isn't. Harry, I trust you to do this. No matter how I beg you to stop, you must make me continue. Understood? Harry wanted to refuse, wanted to find another solution. But he trusted Dumbledore's judgment. Yes, sir, Dumbledore began drinking. The effects were horrific. He screamed, begged for it to stop, hallucinated terrors Harry couldn't see. But Harry forced him to keep drinking, goblet after goblet, until the basin was empty. Harry retrieved the locket. They were immediately attacked by Inferi emerging from the lake. Harry cast fire spells. Inferi feared flames, while protecting the weakened Dumbledore. They escaped, but barely. Dumbledore was dangerously weakened, muttering incoherently about things Harry couldn't understand. Back at Hogwarts, Madame Pomfrey treated Dumbledore while Minerva and Harry examined the locket. "This is it?" Minerva asked, holding the ornate golden locket with its serpent design. "A Horcrux," Harry confirmed. "A piece of Voldemort's soul is inside this. How do we destroy it? Basilisk venom, fiend fire, or something equally destructive that damages beyond magical repair. I'll ask Severus to brew something. Until then, we keep this secure." Minerva looked at Harry with concern. "How are you?" "Tired. Watching Dumbledore suffer through that potion. It was one of the hardest things I've done. But you did it. You stayed strong when he needed you. That's courage, Harry. True courage." In January, disaster struck. Death Eaters attacked Hogsmeade during a student visit. Harry was there with Ron and Hermione, shopping for supplies. The attack was sudden and brutal. Death Eaters appeared, casting killing curses and torture hexes. Students ran screaming. Harry's training kicked in. "Hermione, organize evacuation. Ron, help her." "I'll hold them off." "Harry, no." Hermione started. "Go." Now, Harry faced 3 Death Eaters alone. He was 16, they were adult wizards. But he'd been trained by the best, and he was fighting for his friends' lives. Shield charm, disarming spell, cutting hex, blasting curse. Harry fought with everything Minerva had taught him: strategy, positioning, using the environment. He transfigured rubble into barriers, created ice patches to trip pursuers, fought with calculated precision. "The Potter boy," one Death Eater shouted. "Take him alive. The Dark Lord wants him." But Harry had no intention of being taken. He fought until Order members arrived, then helped evacuate wounded students. When Minerva found him afterward, he was bleeding from several cuts and bruised from a blasting curse that had thrown him into a wall. "You fought Death Eaters," she said, her voice shaking as she healed his injuries. "You're 16 years old and you fought Death Eaters." "I had to. Students needed time to escape. You could have died, but I didn't. The training worked. Everything you taught me about combat, about tactics, it worked." Minerva pulled him into a fierce hug. "Don't ever scare me like that again. Do you understand? I cannot lose you." "I'm sorry, but Minerva, this is what's coming. The war is escalating. I'm going to face Death Eaters again." "You know that." "I know. I wish you didn't have to." In March, they destroyed the Locket Horcrux using fiend fire, carefully controlled by Dumbledore in a warded chamber. The fragment of soul screamed as it burned, a terrible sound that haunted Harry's dreams for weeks. 3 Horcruxes down, 4 to go. Dumbledore had leads on 2 more. Helga Hufflepuff's cup, believed to be in Bellatrix Lestrange's Gringotts vault, and Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, hidden somewhere in Hogwarts. "We'll need to infiltrate Gringotts," Dumbledore said. "Extraordinarily difficult, but not impossible. As for the diadem, if it's in Hogwarts, we have an advantage. We can search thoroughly." They spent months researching. Harry studied Hogwarts' hidden places, trying to imagine where Voldemort might hide a Horcrux. The Room of Requirement seemed likely, a room that became what you needed, perfect for hiding precious objects. In June, tragedy struck in a different way. Dumbledore's health had been deteriorating since the cave. The potion had damaged him in ways Madame Pomfrey couldn't fully heal. He was dying slowly, and everyone knew it. "I have perhaps a year," Dumbledore told Harry and Minerva privately. "Perhaps less. We must accelerate the Horcrux hunt. Harry, you'll need to continue this work after I'm gone." "Don't talk like that," Minerva said sharply. "We'll find a cure. There is no cure for dark magic this advanced." "But Minerva, I'm at peace. I've lived a long life. My only regret is that I won't see Harry defeat Voldemort." "You will," Harry said fiercely. "You'll see it because we're going to destroy the Horcruxes this year and kill Voldemort before you die." Dumbledore smiled sadly. "I appreciate your confidence. But Harry, If I do die before this is finished, promise me you'll continue. Promise me you'll finish what we started. I promise. 7th year. The final hunt. Dumbledore died in August, 2 months before Harry's 7th year would have begun. Not from the dark magic poison, from a final desperate mission to retrieve Hufflepuff's cup from Gringotts. The mission succeeded, but Dumbledore was mortally wounded in the escape. He died in the hospital wing with Minerva and Harry at his bedside. The cup, he gasped, with his final breaths. Destroy it. 4 Horcruxes down. 3 remain. Nagini, the diadem, and... He looked at Harry with terrible sadness. There's one more. A terrible one. But I haven't time. He died before finishing. The wizarding world mourned. Albus Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of the age, was gone. Minerva became headmistress immediately. Her first act was to call Harry to her office. You're not attending 7th year, she said bluntly. What? You're hunting Horcruxes. That's more important than any WTS. And I'm helping you. You're headmistress now. You can't leave. I can and I will. Phileas can manage the school. Harry, I've raised you for 16 years. I'm not letting you face this final battle without me. What about the prophecy? It says I have to face Voldemort. It says you're the one who can kill him. It doesn't say you have to do it alone. We're finishing this together. They recruited help. Hermione, brilliant researcher. Ron, loyal friend and tactical thinker. Sirius, powerful duelist. Remus, experienced warrior. The team began hunting the remaining Horcruxes. They destroyed Hufflepuff's cup using basilisk venom. Harry had retrieved fangs from the chamber during the summer. 5 Horcruxes destroyed. 2 remained, Nagini and the diadem. Finding the diadem required returning to Hogwarts. They infiltrated the castle under Polyjuice Potion during the winter term. Harry found the diadem in the Room of Requirement, hidden among thousands of objects accumulated over centuries. But when they tried to leave with it, they were discovered by Death Eaters who'd infiltrated the school. The battle that followed was catastrophic. Death Eaters versus Order members versus students who'd stayed to fight. The castle became a war zone. Harry destroyed the diadem with Fiendfire, though the room nearly collapsed around him. 6 Horcruxes down. 1 remained, Nagini. Voldemort keeps her close, Minerva said during a War Council meeting. We won't be able to destroy her without confronting him directly. Then we confront him, Harry said. We've destroyed 6 Horcruxes. He's nearly mortal now. 1 more Horcrux, then we can actually kill him. Harry, Minerva said carefully. Dumbledore mentioned a 7th Horcrux. One he didn't have time to explain. What if... I know what you're thinking, Harry interrupted. What if I'm the 7th Horcrux? What if when Voldemort tried to kill me as a baby, a piece of his soul latched onto me? The room went silent. That would explain the connection, Hermione said quietly. The way you can see through his eyes sometimes. The Parseltongue ability. The scar that connects you. If that's true, Harry said steadily, then to make Voldemort mortal, I have to die. To destroy the Horcrux in me, he has to kill me. No, Minerva said immediately. Absolutely not. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Harry's voice was sharp. The prophecy was clear. Neither can live while the other survives. If I'm a Horcrux, then I have to die for Voldemort to become mortal enough to kill. It's always been heading toward this. Then we don't kill Voldemort, Minerva said desperately. We imprison him. He'll always escape. Always return. Always threaten everyone I love. No. This ends. If my death ends it, then... I didn't raise you for 16 years just to watch you die. Minerva was crying now, tears streaming down her face. You're my son, Harry. My son. I can't. I won't. Harry hugged her tightly. I know. But you raised me to do what's necessary, not what's easy. You taught me that sometimes the strategic choice requires sacrifice. This is my sacrifice. To save everyone else. Sirius was shaking his head. There has to be another option. Soul magic is complicated. Maybe we can extract the Horcrux without killing you. We've researched for months, Hermione said, her voice breaking. Every text, every reference. Horcruxes can only be destroyed by destroying their container. If Harry's the container, the truth hung in the air, terrible and final. When Minerva asked, her voice barely a whisper, soon. Voldemort's gathering his forces for a final assault on Hogwarts. He wants the school, wants to destroy the last bastion of resistance. When he attacks, I'll go to him. I'll let him kill me. Then you, all of you, you finish it. You kill him while he's mortal. This is insane, Ron said. Harry, you're asking us to let you die. I'm asking you to let me save you. All of you. The entire wizarding world. This is my choice. My sacrifice. Please, please respect it. The Battle of Hogwarts came in May. Voldemort's forces attacked at dawn. Hundreds of Death Eaters, giants, acromantulas, every dark creature he could command. Hogwarts defenders fought desperately. Students, professors, order members, anyone willing to stand against the darkness. Harry fought alongside them for hours, protecting the castle, buying time. He dueled Death Eaters, saved younger students, used every spell Minerva had ever taught him. But finally he knew it was time. He found Minerva during a brief lull in the fighting. She was bleeding from a curse wound, but still standing, still fighting. It's time, Harry said quietly. Minerva's face crumpled. Please don't. Please, Harry, there has to be another way. There isn't, and you know it. Harry hugged her one last time. Thank you. For everything. For taking me from the Dursleys. For raising me. For being the mother I needed. For teaching me to be brave enough to do this. You were always brave, Minerva sobbed. From the first moment I held you. I'm so proud of you. So incredibly proud. Tell Sirius I love him. Tell Hermione and Ron they're the best friends I could have asked for. And Minerva, live. Survive this. Build the world I'm dying to protect. He pulled away before she could stop him and walked into the Forbidden Forest, where Voldemort was waiting. The Death Eaters parted as Harry approached. Voldemort stood at the center, Nagini coiled around his shoulders. Harry Potter, Voldemort said softly, the boy who lived. Come to die. Yes, Harry said simply. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. No pleading? No begging for mercy? Would it matter? No. Avada Kedavra, the green light struck Harry's chest. He felt himself falling, felt the world fading, and woke in a white space that might have been King's Cross Station, or might have been his own mind. Dumbledore was there, smiling gently. Hello, Harry. Am I dead? Not quite, you're in between. The Horcrux in you has been destroyed by Voldemort's curse. But you have a choice. You can move on or you can return. Return. But I'm dead. Voldemort used your blood to resurrect himself in 4th year. Your mother's protection, carried in your blood, still lives in him. That tethers you to life. You can return if you choose. Harry thought of Minerva, of his friends, of the world still fighting. I choose to return. I have to finish this. Then go. And Harry, well done. Harry opened his eyes in the Forbidden Forest. He was surrounded by Death Eaters celebrating his death. Voldemort was ordering Narcissa Malfoy to check if he was truly dead. Narcissa knelt beside him. Is Draco alive? She whispered too quietly for others to hear. Yes, Harry breathed. Then, stay still. Loudly she announced, He's dead, my lord. Voldemort had Harry's body brought to Hogwarts as a trophy, to demoralize the defenders. But when they arrived at the castle, Harry rolled from Hagrid's arms and fired a curse at Nagini. The snake writhed and died, destroyed by fiend fire conjured in desperation. The last Horcrux was gone. Voldemort was mortal. He's alive! Someone screamed. The battle resumed with renewed fury. But now, with all Horcruxes destroyed, Voldemort could truly die. The final duel happened in the Great Hall. Harry versus Voldemort, surrounded by fighting armies. You're alive, Voldemort hissed. Impossible. You made it possible, Harry replied. You used my blood, my mother's protection. That protected me even from you. They dueled with everything they had. Voldemort cast killing curses and torture hexes. Harry fought with strategy, with precision, with every lesson Minerva had drilled into him. Their wands connected again. Priori incantatem, brother wands recognizing each other. But this time, Harry was ready. He practiced this connection with Dumbledore, understood how to manipulate it. He pushed his will through the connection, overwhelming Voldemort's control. The wand, Voldemort's wand, recognized Harry as its master. Expelliarmus, Harry shouted. Avada Kedavra, Voldemort screamed. The killing curse rebounded. Tom Riddle fell, dead for the last time. The battle ended. The Death Eaters fled or surrendered. Voldemort's body lay motionless in the ruined Great Hall. It was over. Harry collapsed, exhausted beyond measure. Minerva was there instantly, pulling him into her arms. "You're alive," she sobbed. "You came back? You're alive?" "I promised to finish it," Harry managed. "I always keep my promises." Epilogue 19 years later. Platform 9 3/4 was crowded with families saying goodbye to students. Harry Potter stood with his wife Ginny and their 3 children, watching the organized chaos with a mixture of nostalgia and amusement. "Nervous?" Ginny asked their oldest son, James Sirius. "A bit," James admitted. "What if I'm not in Gryffindor like you and Mum?" "Then you'll be in whatever house suits you best," Minerva McGonagall said, approaching the family with her characteristic brisk stride. She was older now, in her 80s, but still formidable, still sharp-eyed, still headmistress of Hogwarts. "Headmistress," James said, straightening immediately. "Mr. Potter," Minerva replied with a slight smile. "Ready for your first year?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Remember, it's your choices that matter, not your sorting. Houses are simply different paths to the same destination. Becoming a witch or wizard of character and skill." "Yes, headmistress." After James boarded the train, Minerva turned to Harry. "Walk with me." They moved away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner of the platform. "How are you?" Minerva asked. "Good. Busy with the Aurora department, but good. You?" "Running a school keeps me occupied, though I confess watching James board the Hogwarts Express reminded me of the first time I took you to platform 9 3/4. You were so nervous, so determined to prove yourself. I learned from the best." "You exceeded everything I could have taught you," Minerva said quietly. "Harry, you saved the wizarding world. You defeated Voldemort. You've become one of the finest Aurors in the department. I couldn't be more proud if you were my blood son." "You're the only mother I've ever known," Harry said. "Blood doesn't matter. You chose me. You raised me. You made me who I am. That's what matters." Minerva's eyes were wet. "Do you ever regret it, being raised by me instead of having a normal childhood? I had you. That was better than normal. Yes, you were strict. Yes, you expected excellence. Yes, you trained me for war from the moment you adopted me. But you also kept me safe. You taught me to think, to strategize, to survive. And you loved me. In your reserved, organized, thoroughly Minerva way. I couldn't have asked for a better mother. Even though I wasn't demonstrative. Even though I made you study when other children played. Especially because of that, you prepared me for the life I had to live. If you'd coddled me, if you'd been soft and permissive, I wouldn't have survived. Your strictness saved my life. Multiple times." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the Hogwarts Express prepare to depart. "Albus Severus starts next year," Harry said, "and Lily the year after. You'll have all 3 of my children at Hogwarts. I look forward to teaching them. Though I suspect they'll be as much trouble as you were." "I was never trouble. I was perfectly disciplined." "You were perfectly disciplined and somehow still ended up fighting dark wizards every year." "That takes a special talent," Harry laughed. "That's fair." The train's whistle blew. Parents waved. Children hung out windows, shouting goodbyes. "Do you think James will be all right?" Harry asked. "He's your son, and my grandson in all the ways that matter. He'll be brilliant." "They all will be," Minerva smiled. "Though I'll hold them to the same exacting standards I held you to. No favoritism for the headmistress's grandchildren. I'd expect nothing less." As the train pulled away, Harry thought about the journey that had led him here. From a baby on a doorstep to the boy who lived. From an orphan who could have been broken by abuse to a child raised with discipline and love. From a student learning magic to a warrior fighting dark lords. All of it possible because one professor had looked at a baby boy and said, "No. No, you won't go to people who will hate you. No, you won't grow up unloved. No, I won't let you face your destiny unprepared." Minerva McGonagall had chosen him, had raised him, had shaped him into someone capable of saving the world. And in doing so, she'd saved him first. "Thank you," Harry said quietly as they left the platform together. "For everything. For taking me, for raising me, for being my mum. I know I don't say it enough, but thank you." "You say it every day," Minerva replied. Through the man you've become, the father you are, the way you live your life, that's thank you enough. They walked out of King's Cross into the London sunshine. Professor and student, mother and son. Two people bound by choice rather than blood. And that bond, forged in a cottage in Hogsmeade 16 years ago, when Minerva McGonagall had first held a 15-month-old baby and promised to keep him safe, remained as strong as ever. The boy who lived had become the man who thrived. All because one stern, brilliant, fiercely devoted witch had refused to leave him on a doorstep. The end.